One look at this damp cave, some idiot got dropped into a game, living in absolute delusion. He honestly thinks he can save the world and himself by adopting 5 future world ending bosses hoping to just sit around and do absolutely nothing forever, but thanks to his terrible communication skills, he accidentally turned those heavily traumatized kids into a crazy slaying cult. It all begins with a highly terrifying prophecy. The Federation Kingdom of the East has only 10 years left before it faces complete and total destruction. This disaster will be caused by the 5 great sins, 5 individuals who possess overwhelming power capable of bringing about the end of the world. Determined to rewrite this grim fate, a man buried under mountains of endless paperwork takes on the heavy role of their guardian. His job is to protect and guide the quiet, troubled children who are destined to grow into these legendary world-ending monsters. Looking at the massive responsibility laid right before him, he cannot help but wonder how a seemingly ordinary job turned into this massive mission to save the entire world. Cut to a super fancy mansion room where our boy is chilling. He used to be a completely cooked corporate slave working 78 hours a week. Now he is reborn as a wealthy noble in a fantasy world. You would think this is a massive win, but there is a major catch. He is holding a big book completely upside down while his butler calls him out. It turns out his brand new body is completely illiterate with absolutely zero special skills. The butler calls him for dinner and he demolishes a massive, delicious feast. Next, a couple of cute maids drag him to the bath to wash him up. He is chilling in the tub getting a sweet back rub, living his best lazy trust fund life. The lucky guy is literally getting scrubbed down by the help. And he honestly thinks he won the lottery, but watch how fast his luck runs out. The maid casually mentions his older brothers Leo and Antonio are coming back tomorrow. He completely freezes up as he realizes he is in the Palacio family. She dunks his head under the water as he starts screaming his lungs out while the maids panic. He realizes he is trapped deep inside a game called Psychedelia. Back in his corporate slave days, he used to grind this game on his handheld and computer. It is a crazy turn-based role-playing game where the 5 great sins always show up and completely trash the world no matter what route you take. The bosses are a stacked lineup of absolute menaces like wrath, greed, sloth, pride, and obsession. They completely ruin the kingdom, the cities, and every single noble in sight. And out of all the families, his own household is the very first to get absolutely wiped out. Brutal, right? His older brothers are literally the king of prostitution and a major drug king. They are just mob trash who get wiped out in a basic side quest. The screen shows the game version of him standing outside his spooky new mansion. The real him is standing in the courtyard, realizing he is playing the role of Alan Palacio, a totally useless background loser. He goes back to his room and flops flat on his bed, begging to go back to his terrible desk job. He is crying and whining about dying in 10 years while tears stream down his face. But then his brain actually starts working, and he realizes something absolutely huge. Knowing the game's future is his ultimate cheat code. He sits up holding a blue flower and hatches a plan to stop the world from ending. He decides to adopt the 5 great sin bosses while they are still just kids and fix them. We transition to 2 months later. He is chilling quietly by a sunny window. His Yebin explains how he rescued some poor orphans from a creepy human lab. The facility was out east. He placed Yusha in charge of the group. Alan tells him he is doing an incredible job. Yebin smiles faintly, though it is hard to tell if he is actually happy since his face never changes. Alan grabs a mirror and squishes his own cheeks. He complains that his current face is completely dead and shows zero emotion. Even with his poker face, he knows Yebin is a top-tier loyal ally who would never betray him. Yebin then brings up the raid. They launch to save the young girl, Yusha. A flashback shows Yebin finding her chained up inside a dim cell alongside other children. She was so crazy strong, he did not understand why she just sat there and let herself get captured so easily. Back in the office, Yebin asks Alan why he did not bring her back to the mansion. Alan leans back, acting as if this is all part of some grand master plan, stating he knows exactly who she is from the game. She is Yucha Bloodia of the grotesque blood tribe, destined to become the literal sin of wrath itself. She looks like an absolute demon with razor-sharp teeth, a total monster, destined to slaughter thousands of innocent people. But Alan figures if he leaves her alone and gives her a peaceful life, she will not snap and destroy everything. He smiles at his desk, thinking he just casually defused a massive landmine. He tells Yebin they are leaving her there because the timing is not right yet. Yebin looks completely blown away by his master's deep thinking. Alan tells him to keep this secret, handing over a letter sealed with red wax to deliver to Yusha. He says it is just a nice get-well card to help her calm down after those harsh experiments. Yebin takes the letter, treating it like a holy relic, and rides off on a horse. Back in his room, Alan really hopes this little trick actually works to calm her down. He remembers a secret phrase from the game that a creepy Archbishop used to quiet the wrath boss. A flashback shows the priest chanting the spell. It failed in the game, but he thinks it might work 10 years early. He stretches his arms, feeling like a genius for fixing one of the world's absolute biggest problems. Her crazy cult mindset makes her easy to trick with some fancy religious words. In a dark alleyway where Yusha is holding the letter, Yebin watches her from the shadows, sweating buckets. Because her magic pressure is completely insane, she looks totally empty. Inside, suddenly, she speaks up and asks if Lord Alan was really the one who sent this letter. She snaps, and red and purple energy violently explodes everywhere. Around her, Yebin panics because she is flexing master level magic like it is nothing. She demands to know why Alan did not bring her to his side. Yebin stutters in sheer terror, repeating that the time is not right yet. The moment she hears this, her eyes go wide, blushing like a total psycho. Oh, she is totally misinterpreting this. She hugs the letter, believing it is a promise only. Her true master would know. Yebin trembles in the background while she claims to understand her master's wish, smiling like a complete lunatic. The scene cuts back to Alan fast asleep in his bed, drooling and hugging his pillow. He thinks he had a massive, big brain day. Later, Alan scours the family library in search of answers but comes up completely empty. Yebin then reports a successful raid on an illegal slave market, securing the second child on their checklist. Our boy panics. Alan demands absolute proof that his rescue crew treated the kid with utmost respect, but before they can celebrate, the door blasts open. Antonio Palacio, the second son, struts in to use Alan's face as a welcome mat. Tonio mocks the young master for pretending to read, establishing himself as a classic sibling menace. Alan decides fighting back is a terrible idea and tries to excuse himself from the room. Tonio rewards this submission with another swift boot to the dirt. A flying knife embeds itself in the furniture, announcing the arrival of Leo Palacio, the eldest brother. Leo complains about the noise and orders everyone out, sparking an instant turf war. Tonio insults Leo's hygiene. Leo insults Tonio's drug habits, and the two maniacs cross blades. These two degenerates are fated to ruin the family, running criminal cartels of narcotics in flesh while fighting a bloody war for succession. Realizing his older brothers are massive walking death flags, Alan decides his ultimate survival strategy is to remain a useless coward. He scrambles away on all fours while the siblings tear the study apart with explosive magic. Once he is safely back in the sanctuary of his room, our hero collapses in a panting heap as Alan catches his breath from his pathetic escape. Yubin drops the ominous detail that the rescued second child seems unusual. Yubin questions the sudden competence of his master, wondering how a man who struggles to look after himself manages to orchestrate international rescue missions, saving children from secret human experiments in illegal slave markets. Yubin dismisses the contradiction, chalking it up to his boss being a complete weirdo. He confirms they dumped the rescued kid at an orphanage, noting Alan called the boy unusual. In our hero's head, that is the understatement of the century. This kid is the future second boss of the game, Days Malian, destined to become the sin of sloth after surviving abuse and slavery in the kingdom of Kalon. Sloth goes nuclear, traumatizing players by annihilating entire kingdoms with relentless vengeance. That is the exact reason Alan hammered Yubin to treat the kid like fragile glass. Alan sips his tea and explains that keeping the boy just was not the right move yet. When Yui asks him about the letter sent to Yudia, Alan claims it was just some basic banter, asking her to look after the frail new kid. Meanwhile, Yudia intercepts the broken boy in the woods and interprets Alan's request as a twisted divine command. She recognizes his scars as the work of the black goat and congratulates him on being chosen by her master, unleashing a massive storm of magic. She binds the boy in glowing strings and forces a supernatural awakening. She promises him absolute revenge, provided he swears total Obedience to Alan, the young master's harmless pen pal notes somehow birthed a fanatical cult initiation. Alan decides to send a warm reply to Yudia, starting steady pen pal correspondence. The next day, Yuban bursts into the room to announce Tonio is dead. Attending the funeral, our hero stands bored. Realizing this premature demise from an accidental fall breaks the original game. Script spotting Leo grinning at the ceremony, Alan connects the dots. The eldest brother orchestrated the assassination to secure the title of heir rather than get tangled in the dark fantasy family drama. Alan ignores the succession war, focusing entirely on hunting the remaining 5 great sins. A year quickly passes. With their sibling rivalry dead, Leo takes total control of the drug trade. This completely stabilizes the Palacio family. Meanwhile, Alan continues building his rapport with Yudia through letters. He reads her latest updates, describing how the orphanage kids love war games and sword dances, playtime. Or so he thinks. Alan completely misses the massive red flags staring at him when Yuban reports a highly suspicious spike in donations to their small orphanage. Talk about a blind spot. He has no idea he's raising a mini cult. Yuban quickly shifts topics. He reveals their information guild secured a vital clue about the third boss. Hearing this, Alan celebrates, finally kicking back, expecting a pretty calm, peaceful evening. He is living a complete delusion. His peace shatters as a violent, blood-curdling scream erupts nearby, down at the Margot distribution center. Leo's thugs are busy bragging about their highly successful criminal empire and highly generous pay. The bragging stops dead. Discover a brutal massacre of their own crew. The survivors panic in absolute terror. An invisible force hijacks their bodies, forcing their own hands to drive cold steel right into their own throats. Carnage. Behind it all is the sloth boy, Diaz. He manipulates glowing magical strings, treating this brutal mass suicide like a fun puppet show. Diaz wonders if slaughtering these drug runners actually serves Yudia's ultimate goal. Yudia dismisses his doubts, declaring they are preparing, stating they are only building a proper foundation to keep the throne. Completely spotless for Alan, he will assume command of their fully indoctrinated cult. Yudia looks up at the night sky, vowing they will act as his absolute deadly blade, making everything bend to his divine will. Too full. Years quickly fly by as Alan keeps exchanging regular letters with Yudia. He is currently sweating bullets in his backyard when Yuban suddenly jumps out. Total jump scare. The loyal knight confirms their 5th target was safely delivered to the orphanage. Every single world-ending menace is officially secured. Alan aggressively force-feeds Yuban a massive tower of macarons as a reward for working him to the bone. Master plan, cooking. Yuban notes that his master looks pretty miserable for a big winner. Alan forces the absolute creepiest, most unhinged smile possible to prove he is thrilled. He flops onto the grass, completely relieved that he saved every single future villain before their dark backstories shattered them. Yuban hands over the latest mail. The kids are healing. Alan happily assumes Yudia is just a natural and loving caretaker. Blind, completely blind to her, turning them into an elite hit squad. Yudia's letter claims the kids are growing up perfectly normal out there. Yuban asks when Alan will finally meet his adopted little squad. Alan immediately shuts down that idea, wanting to keep his distance. No danger zones for him. He wants to dodge them for another 5 years. Changing the subject, Yuban asks him about a highly mysterious group. They're called Blue Moon, a new vigilante crew wiping out criminal scum since they target corrupt nobles. Alan gets pretty spooked, ordering Yuban sleeping peacefully in the next room. Meanwhile, deep in the night, a secret meeting is taking place at the orphanage. During their secret meeting, Yusha demands a full activity report from her fully radicalized child soldiers. The fox girl, Silong, boasts about violently severing slave trader heads in the north, burying the bodies incredibly cleanly. That nobody noticed. Ryan confirms the illegal southern labs are crushed. Meanwhile, Raiden, representing purity, casually mentions shredding an annoying group called Avalon into absolute mist. Yusha praises the squad, declaring that all their bloody work is for their great moon's glory, who is literally just Alan, but she drops a truly massive problem on them. Uncovered documents proving the Count's eldest son, Leo, was actively plotting to poison their beloved master. Her eyes glow with straight possessive murder. Fast forward 2 years, and the old Count finally dies from drug abuse. At his funeral, nobles whisper in terror about Blue Moon wiping out entire factions overnight, Alan realizes the vibes are cooked and immediately packs his bags, dragging Yuban away. They ride a carriage down south to Rodmal to toast some bread, but just 3 days later, he is dragged right back to that blood-soaked mansion. Another funeral just dropped, and this time it is for Leo. Alan stares cluelessly at the casket, noticing Leo got his heart violently pierced by a blade. Who killed his terrible brother? Suddenly, he locks eyes with a noble, making the entire crowd violently flinch. In part, he is completely lost in the sauce. But rewinding to the day our boy left for his vacation town, Yuban asks if a bigger city would be better. Alan shuts that down fast, knowing this village is the ultimate safe zone. He thinks this quiet village has absolutely zero gang connections, making it the perfect spot for a lazy rich life. Yuban side-eyes him, claiming he is definitely not falling for his fake innocent act. Now Alan sweats and tells his knight to drop the subject. The scene shifts back to the main mansion as Alan's carriage slowly rolls out. Leo, the older brother, watches from his balcony and debates if he should murder Alan. Deciding the kid is too useless to matter, he tells his trusted right-hand man Almond to follow him. Uncharacteristically, Almond asks if he should just kill the kid, confusing Leo since his loyal dog never asks questions. Before Leo can blink, Almond pulls a blade and viciously slashes his own screaming boss, then stands over the bleeding noble, dropping his act and admitting he loves playing war games. Mind-blowing twist hits as Almond is revealed to be an active, secret member of the Blue Moon cult. Flashbacks show the unhinged cult claiming they are the Great Moon's sword, cleared to eliminate any potential threats. Almond slaughters the rest of the guards in the room without breaking a single sweat. He tells dying Leo it is a pity, but the Great Moon gave him a choice. On the other side, Alan wakes up to a bright and sunny morning at his new vacation house. Our boy is living his absolute best life, eating toast and thinking he is safe from all danger, but his peaceful vacation ends in just 3 days when Yuban hands him an urgent letter which announces Leo is dead, demanding Alan return to the state. Alan travels back home to find every single noble sweating and bowing, staring at him in total terror. He pulls Yuban aside, demanding to know what is going on. Why is everyone treating him like some ruthless mafia godfather? Yuban leans in, whispering that Alan is the only one who benefits from this. This gives him the ultimate alibi. Naturally, Yuban starts praising his young master. He genuinely believes Alan planned this to secure his spot as the ultimate heir. Terrified, Alan asks if the Blue Moon group pulled this off, but Yuban shakes his head. Those killers used swords and left a total bloodbath. Talk about catching a massive stray case. Alan is sweating bullets now. Meanwhile, Yudia is currently checking in on her squad. She asks her tiny squad of killers if they left any trace. Reagan speaks up first. He assures her they left nothing, while Singh just giggles about the mountain of bodies. Then Days reports that they have arrived at the base. 486 enemies remain. Manipulating his glowing strings, Rayan declares they sliced every single target in half, just like their master ordered. Hearing this, Yudia flashes a deeply unsettling smile. That massive Avalon gang has been completely wiped off the face of the earth. Rayan slides up to Yudia with a folder, warning her that the job is far from over. He hands over papers showing a whole new batch of nobles tied to the syndicate. In fact, the local duchy family seems to be neck-deep in this messy drama. Yudia's eyes flare with a manic obsession as she turns back to her squad. These mini death machines are ready. She tells them that they already know the drill. The boys smirk, eagerly preparing to dismantle and slaughter the next corrupt bloodline. Glares turning icy, Yudia demands they keep their mouths shut. Singh gets the cleanup order. The crew immediately moves to handle the cover-up. Rayan simply flexes his glowing blade. He promises to crush the problem quietly. Yudia smirks, grilling Rayan about the info guild. Rayan confirms that the guild bought their lie hook, line, and sinker. Alan remains completely clueless, while the underworld whispers about his legendary power. Yudia commands the team to keep their master entirely in the dark. This is personal. Nobody targets their master and gets away with it. Gripping his blade, Days firmly declares that they are merely Alan's weapon. Yudia agrees. A sword has absolutely no right to think. It only strikes when ordered. Remembering Alan's kindness, she orders the squad to never disappoint him. Meanwhile, back in his office, our young master is sweating buckets. He is terrified of exposure. Meanwhile, Yudia smiles like an absolute psycho. She swears everything they do is for his glory. Later, Alan faceplants onto his desk. He is absolutely buried under a massive, never-ending mountain of paperwork. With Leo dead way ahead of schedule, Alan has to run the family business. His employees are utterly terrified, sweating through their shirts. They think he is a ruthless crime lord. Honestly, Alan just wanted to be a lazy, rich kid. Instead, his panicked staff works double time just to avoid getting assassinated. Later, Alan practices some basic fire magic, leaving Yuban completely shocked. Yuban praises him for reaching the second magic tier in just 2 years. Doing it without a master is insane. Alan feels like he is finally cooking. He tries to show off precise mana control, but a harsh reality check hits him. His magic is half-baked. He immediately starts looking for another way to survive. Yuban interrupts his panic attack to hand him a fancy invitation to a ball. Soon, Alan rolls up to the massive networking event. Looking absolutely exhausted, he prepares to secure some vital alliances for his future. He officially takes over as the Count, but the moment Alan walks toward the crowd, every aristocrat flinches and scatters like cockroaches. Yuban tries his best to comfort him, but Alan knows the terrible reputation of his family makes him the ultimate black sheep. He targets a random lady, throwing out a smooth compliment about her unique choice of wine, but she completely misreads his polite, friendly smile. Panics immediately and runs off to surrender her private family stash. The rest of the crowd whispers that Alan just ruthlessly extorted a helpless lady, instantly boosting his scary reputation too. To ultimate scoundrel, Yemen pretends she was just shy while listing off his random loot Alan somehow collected. He totally gives up on making friends. Making friends, Alan slowly steps out onto the empty balcony just to grab some fresh air. Mysterious red-haired lady watches him leave the hall, standing alone. Standing alone, Alan seriously questions his entire life choices until a mysterious girl suddenly interrupts him. She introduces herself as Loria, third daughter of the Ulsha family. Alan instantly recognizes her bloodline as one of the 3 ultimate villainous groups in the game, and he panics because she never once existed in the original novel. Looking completely desperate, Loria begs Alan to lend her his legendary strength. Then she drops a massive bombshell: she is about to be assassinated. The scene quickly kicks off with her desperately begging Alan for his protection because her very own sisters are trying to end her life. She tells a sob story about her sick father offering half of her massive family fortune for some basic protection. Alan rejects her massive offer straight to her face without missing a single solitary beat now. He figures dodging this random girl will keep his sweet, lazy lifestyle safe from any extra drama. Meanwhile, deep in the shadows, 2 mysterious girls whisper about how lucky Loria is to run into their leader, the Great Moon. They plot to block all incoming information, so Alan never finds out they are slaughtering people in his name. Back at the lavish party, Alan stands around in the corner feeling totally isolated, like a massive loser. He secretly whines about needing just one truly good friend to survive this brutal high society, but out of nowhere, Lady Zenonia struts right up to him and drops a smooth greeting. Alan sweats hard, because he knows her notorious family is one of the top 3 villainous groups in the entire land. She actually runs a massive underground syndicate, while his own family looks like cheap street thugs in comparison. She slides her hand right onto his chest, praising his polite manners while demanding a completely private chat. Alan panics hard and stammers a weak excuse, begging her to let him slip away into the shadows quickly. She flashes a wicked smile, wildly intrigued by his seemingly fake mysterious bad boy routine, and slowly walks away. Meanwhile, deep in the dark shadows, the secret cult spies watch him get cornered by that red-haired lady. They decide to keep a close eye on things, ready to immediately eliminate anyone who dares touch their master. Later, under the blazing sun, we find ourselves in a creepy stone canyon. Alan drags Yuban into a secret labyrinth, claiming this ancient dark hole is definitely the exact hot spot they need to hit. Yuban asks how he knows about this hidden place, and Alan accidentally lets slip that he used to visit this place all the time. He lies quickly to cover his tracks, gaslighting his loyal knight into believing he was just daydreaming. They step deeper into the dark ruins to search for a specific piece of ancient jewelry. Suddenly, a massive stone monster drops from the lane, stands completely still as a giant fist swings down from the ceiling. Calmly, he solves a basic wall puzzle, shutting the beast down. Yuban can only stare in absolute awe, convinced his master is a genius. Heavy doors slowly grind open, revealing the path to their ultimate prize. Lane grabs a thick black ring and tells Yubin to leave the rest behind. They need to get out of there fast. He slides the ring onto his thumb. Feeling like a total winner who skipped the grind, he promises Yubin a safe trip. But of course, his confidence instantly triggers the worst luck possible. The entire ground shakes. A pile of harmless rocks rises up, revealing a massive ambush of stone giants. Yubin draws his blade, shouting for Elaine to run while he holds them off. But Elaine steps up, knowing his basic magic will not scratch these stone monsters. He activates the mysterious ring, plunging his mind into a massive cosmic void. A booming ancient voice echoes in the darkness, demanding a heavy price. Lane offers a trade, locking his spells behind strict hand signs for absolute power. He wants enough power to bend reality, and the void grants his greedy wish. But he is not done. Elaine immediately doubles down and demands a second seal. He chants strange ancient words, pushing his magical limits even further. The entity accepts the harsh deal, praising him for knowing the old god's secrets. The thick band of metal melts directly into his skin, sealing the dark bargain. Now he has it, the massive explosive force he needs to end this. Back in reality, Yubin is pushed to his absolute limit by the massive monsters. He screams that they do not have enough firepower. Elaine quickly weaves hand signs. A blinding sphere of pure lightning crackles to life directly in his palm. He glares at the massive beast, ready to unleash a heavy burst of electricity. Let us see if this wild power is actually worth the terrifying price. Holding the glowing blue energy, he shouts the ancient incantation as sparks fly everywhere. He forms his fingers into a precise sign and fires a massive lightning beam. The wild electricity rips straight ahead, leaving a trail of pure destruction. The giant stone monster gets completely roasted by the high voltage and crumbles away. Yubin stares at him like he just saw a ghost, totally shook by the showcase. He begs to know if Elaine was hiding this insane level of power the whole time. He claims he has never seen anything this wild in all his 15 years of fighting. Elaine plays it cool and nods, though deep down, he is sweating bullets. He had absolutely zero clue this would happen. The old world rules are broken. His newly sealed magic is amplified to a ridiculous, terrifying degree. Once the dust settles, Yubin slumps to the ground, complaining about the long hike. He looks up at the towering ruins, wondering what kind of psycho built this place. Elaine remembers the lore. This dungeon was built by an ancient boss. He quietly whispers the name Palin out loud, lost in his own thoughts. Yubin looks confused, but Elaine ignores him and orders a fast march back. He needs to reach his lab to test these new powers as soon as his mana recharges. Meanwhile, under the cover of night, Ryan is creeping around the glowing blue rocks. She carefully reads the ancient script carved directly into the cold stone walls. The text tells of forgotten outer gods and the legendary emperor who stood against them. According to history, the emperor slayed a massive beast to protect his vast kingdom, preventing people from having their hearts eaten. She knows all this deep lore because she was born inside that secret library to carry out a heavy mission. Suddenly, she realizes. Alan casually called that ancient emperor a friend, making her master look like a downright immortal god. Ren grins like a total fanatic, absolutely ashamed she ever doubted the insanely wild plans of their twisted cult. A spy drops from the trees and she instantly grills him for the fresh intel they need. The trembling spy admits he failed completely because their target in black had his neck violently twisted. Ren glares out into the dark, deciding she must report this messy disaster to the higher-ups right away. The scene shifts over to the Xenia territory, where Kalia sits chilling with her tea in the dark, thinking about how cold and dead Alan looked, completely consumed by that empty gaze. Soon, she chats with Count Zenonia, casually admitting she is the real shadow boss behind their criminal empire. She commands a massive criminal syndicate, proving she knows exactly how to handle dangerous operations. Count Zenonia plays dumb, but Kalia knows someone is watching them and their hidden spies are getting taken out. A servant completely panics, begging Kalia to rush back to her private room this instant. She steps inside and finds her top spy hanging lifelessly over the floor. The servant notes the clean, silent kill proves the spy kept his mouth shut before he was eliminated. Kalia smirks, realizing Alan caught her off guard and pinned her critical weakness right to the wall. Meanwhile, the camera cuts back to Alan, drooling fast asleep inside a bumpy carriage heading home. The scene shifts to the Massive Altia family estate in the dead of night. Loria is staring out her window. Totally stressed over a cold-eyed underworld boss, she flashes back to Win. Alan stood before her looking like an absolute force, certain he is a dangerous mastermind. She laments being stripped of her wealth and power by her four, incredibly cowardly siblings. Alan completely ignored her desperate plea for a deal. Leaving her broke and weeping, she thought he was her final lifeline, but he refused to carry her heavy burdens. Next, Loria pulls up to her creepy estate inside a fancy carriage. Her maids rush out in a total panic, crying that her vile siblings have just committed suicide. Loria stands there completely stunned. Knowing those greedy, backstabbing snakes would never actually kill themselves, she steps inside to a horrific bloodbath, wondering how a group of utter cowards could suddenly take their own lives. She immediately demands to know what happened to her eldest siblings, breaking out in a cold sweat. Maids silently point toward the gruesome scene. Her eldest brother and sister are standing there completely ruined, and the most unhinged part, both siblings had run each other through, driving their swords directly into each other's chests. Radin fades into the shadows, packing his weapons after effortlessly wiping out the family line. Loria freezes in pure terror. As she recalls Alan promising her good fortune right before he left, she instantly connects the dots, realizing Alan is the true dark shadow running the streets. He casually slaughtered her entire family just to place her on top. Just like that, Loria becomes the sole head of the Altia family overnight. She wonders what kind of demon she made a deal with, but she is ready to write it out. Fast forward 2 months, where Yubian hands Alan a rare, mystical bottle of luxury wine. It is a gift from Duke Ulsha that cost a massive fortune. Alan holds the card, completely bewildered because he ghosted her and did zero actual work. Somehow, Loria grabbed that Duke title and sent him a heavy package. Meanwhile, a flashback shows Loria sitting at the giant boss desk, ruling her territory like a queen. She dodged all the murder heat thanks to a perfect party alibi, keeping her hands completely clean. She believes Alan handled the dirty work flawlessly, playing deep tactical chess while leaving her zero burden. She assumes his master plan required her family name to boost his reputation. She decides to sit tight and prepare for whenever her master makes his move. Meanwhile, our clueless protagonist stares at the wine, wondering why she acts so obsessed. He thinks she is just a weirdo, completely unaware she worships him. Months fly by. At the snowy Palazzo mansion, Yuban begins greeting him. Alan kicks back, fully ready to enjoy his wealthy perks and avoid any heavy stress. He wants a perfect lazy life with zero drama and endless free food. Yuban interrupts his quiet vibe by delivering a new letter from Yudia. Alan asks for news about his brother's killers, but Yuban says they are still digging. Yuban asks what the grand plan is, but Alan just shrugs, blaming his strange luck on butterfly effects. He opens the letter and reads about the kids living normal lives. Deez is playing with puppets, Seong is running around, Ryan is reading, and Redan is relaxing. Alan smiles like a proud dad, completely blind to the monster squad he is raising. He thinks they are just adorable pets, which, let's be real, is a massive mistake. He wonders how they are doing while Yui looks suspicious. She reminds him the kids are ready to enter society. All 5 of these world-ending menaces are smiling and thanking him for raising them right. Alan decides it is time to set them free, completely confident they will not turn into villains. He recalls their special stats and decides to mail each child a personalized gift. Yuban grabs the stack of letters, gives a cheeky salute, and runs off to work. The scene shifts to the kids gathered in a dark, quiet room. A massive command finally drops from their favorite master. Redan and the crew get their special letters delivered straight to their hands. Yui stares down at her letter, gripping it tight while her eyes glow a crazy, bloodthirsty red. The squad gathers in the dark as new mail arrives. Yui stops them from opening it and grabs the old letters first. She reads Alan complaining about getting pushed around by his brother and seriously translates it as a top-tier contract. These kids. Honestly, these kids are so brainwashed they find deep meaning in literally anything. They believe a minor complaint about back pain is master-level code. Yui preaches that his casual notes are plans to conquer the underworld. Redan asks why their leader uses slow paper mail instead of meeting. Yui instantly shuts him down, acting like a loyal cultist who refuses to question his divine plan. Dees looks completely obsessed, lost in her. Grand plan, Davis looks completely obsessed, totally lost in her weird state. Siolang finally tears open his new orders, and immediately complains about getting sent to the dusty desert. Redan gets deployed to the Pleasure City, meaning this white-haired kid is about to get completely drained. In the trenches, Merlin is shipped off to a massive maze while Yudia secures her spot in the Holy Kingdom with a dark smirk. Deus reads his paper and realizes his master wants him swinging a sword, seeing. Happily notes the boss promised them a steady cash flow to fund their chaotic road trips. Yuya lays down the law, warning them to never mention the cult name in public. This whole squad of troublemakers steps out into the bright sunshine, completely ready to terrorize the map. After 3 months, our hero is stressed to the limit behind a massive stack of books. He asks Yubin if the spies found out who turned his awful brother into a bloody mess. Yubin just shakes his head, completely useless as always. Alan remembers Loria is currently swallowing up underworld power like a beast. He decides to drop the murder case, realizing that digging any deeper will definitely get him killed. He figures the secret shadow mobs will leave him alone if he just stays inside and plays dumb. He officially cancels the manhunt and goes right back to being a lazy potato. Yubin tells him that Deus has finally become a knight in Caliban. 3 more months fly by and Yan officially addresses him as the Count while our boy aggressively devours a massive stack of meat skewers. Yan drops the news that Deus just built his own Night Order out in the city. Alan gets hyped, thinking his dark weapon is growing up beautifully. 6 months pass and our boy is back to riding his desk chair hard. Yan pops in with the craziest update yet, announcing Deus just hit the rank of Master Knight. Alan literally chokes on his drink in pure shock. It is a title reserved for literal absolute monsters. He remembers old world rules, where real masters unlock custom powers after decades of harsh training. Yubin confirms Deus skipped the custom power part, but still totally folded the 4th sword to steal the shiny title. Yubin explains that a beast named Reinhardt took 20 years to reach that legendary level. Our protagonist realizes Deus picked up a blade and learned everything from scratch in a single year. He starts plotting how to squeeze some sweet perks out of his adopted weapon for himself. Yubin just smiles while Alan immediately starts crying about his empty mailbox. He realizes Yudia is completely ghosting him. While swapping all the juicy gossip with the rest of the squad, our boy feels incredibly betrayed that his favorite white-haired psycho has not thanked him for those massive gifts. He slaps his own face hard, telling himself to stop whining like a neglected sidepiece. He decides to just be happy. These crazy walking disasters are not actively burning his kingdom to the ground. He smiles out the window, totally satisfied as long as they are eating well. The scene shifts entirely to a gorgeous sunset over this massive night capital. Dozens of heavy knights sweated out in the training yard of the Lunar Eclipse Mansion. Deus stands by the window wearing a fancy captain uniform and looking like a brooding edgelord. Someone yells out for their brother and a cute girl runs to him. He catches her with a soft smile. Suddenly, he feels incredibly awkward about how soft he has become. A deep flashback strikes. It takes him back to when he was nothing but a completely broken, miserable mess. Those shadow freaks wiped his whole life clean, leaving him to rot in a cold dark cell. He survived on nothing but pure, unfiltered hatred and a burning need for vengeance. He wanted to end lives. The cult gave him shelter, but he only stayed to sharpen his blade and plan his bloody revenge. Then came a letter from Alan telling him to visit a cheap inn for a surprise. He kicked the door open and immediately started crying his eyes out because his supposedly dead sister was standing right there, waiting just for him. Dees drops to his knees. He completely breaks down, crying over this impossible family reunion. His little sister is actually alive, standing right in front of him after all this time. They finally sit down to talk, and she spills the painful truth about her dark past. She was dragged away by some shady cultists and locked inside a rusty cage for years. She thought her life was completely over, just sitting there waiting in the dark to die. But right before those monsters could end her life, a savior appeared. A dark shadow stepped up, slashing them to pieces and letting her escape. She survived that bloody mess, only to get cornered by dirty slave traders years later. That was when the one-eyed goat warrior Ibn swung his blade, saving her from ruin. She hands Dees a neat little note signed by none other than Alan, proving he had quietly funded her survival this entire time. Dees stares, totally shocked. Realizing his master was paying to keep his only family alive, Dees feels like a complete fool as the puzzle pieces finally snap together inside his head. He realizes Alan knew his deepest secrets and played savior just to keep her breathing. Overwhelmed with raw emotion, this poor black-haired warrior gets so choked up that he practically drowns his sister in a massive, tearful hug. He vows to stop being a useless burden and start putting in real, heavy work for his master. He promises to climb to the absolute top, building the most elite squad ever seen. Dees straps on his dark commander uniform and proudly stands in front of his massive new army. He pledges absolute loyalty to the moon, ready to drag his men through the absolute harshest conditions. The squad marches out into the freezing snow to clash with wild barbarians and crush their enemies. Meanwhile, the scene completely shifts to a sunny afternoon where Alan is just lazily slacking off. Alan lies in the grass, surrounded by messy papers. Thinking his life is finally stress-free, he starts scribbling in his notebook, trying to map out all the crazy ancient words he has unlocked so far. He is mixing and matching powerful phrases to see how much energy he can extract. Suddenly, he blasts a wild shockwave into the sky, combining blue light and crushing force. Honestly, most of us would probably pass out just trying to control this level of power. He realizes he has to drain his massive magic pool once a day to keep his body balanced. He steps up to try a fresh combination, chaining words like compression and collapse. To conjure a massive, glowing orb, a wild lightning beam shoots straight into the sky, but he realizes his magic timing has to be absolutely perfect. Out of nowhere, Zenonia and some wrinkly old elder walk up and completely freeze in shock. The old man screams about origin magic, sweating as if he just witnessed a god. Alan looks around, totally confused, while the old man claims only a seventh circle. Grandmaster could ever pull this off. Only top-tier freaks can handle that heavy pressure. Lady Zenonia and the disgraced fifth-rank mage Biancal sat dripping with cold sweat in the Palacio reception room. Zenonia had arrived to sniff out Count Palacio's real power and secret guard, clutching a card that could detonate her entire criminal empire if things went wrong. Now watch, because what she actually found shook her deep down. Next to her, Biancal, a man infamous for illegal human experiments and capable of wiping out armies, trembled like a cornered rat, feeling a suffocating dark horror radiating from the estate. The heavy doors swung open, and Alan casually strolled in, his eyes ice cold. Plopping onto a sofa, he smoothly brushed off Zenonia's quick lie about getting lost, telling the red-haired lady he wouldn't hold her weird, stalking against her. Leaning forward, Alan made it crystal clear that the massive energy flex they witnessed was not origin magic. He rated his own output as a basic second-rank level, with 0 attack or defense stats, dropping a heavy warning for them to keep their mouths completely shut. Biancal broke like a cheap toy, stuttering in total submission and using hyper-respectful honorifics that completely shocked Zenonia. Alan simply smiled, crossed his hands, and brutally cut through their small talk, stating he was too busy grinding paperwork. Taking the massive loss, Zenonia excused herself, but as she stood, Alan casually dropped a chaotic bomb to get her off his back, suggesting she go bother Duke Ulster instead, claiming those two toxic underworld bosses would get along perfectly once inside her carriage. Zenonia demanded the truth. Biancal aggressively denied it was origin magic. Teetering on a full-blown panic attack, he explained that origin magic followed the fixed rules of the universe, but Count Palacio's magic was completely broken. Activating his special glowing blue eye, the mage had seen Alan literally tearing the magical canvas apart, freezing wild lightning and collapsing the pure laws of physics into a single spell. Biancal screamed that it was 100% the work of a forgotten ancient deity, warning her to never make an enemy out of that walking disaster. Zenonia merely smirked, totally turned on by the idea of serving a god, fully accepting her role as his loyal pawn. She ordered the carriage straight to Ulster's turf. 5 months later, Euban dropped a massive bomb on Alan's peaceful vibe, revealing that the Zenonia and Ulster families had just fused into a giant, terrifying underworld alliance. Alan was violently shocked, realizing his casual joke had been interpreted as an absolute divine order. Pulling his hair out, he prepared for the worst by handing Euban a sealed letter for the mercenary guild. He also ordered his knight to keep tracking the missing kids, especially Redan and the blonde fox girl selling Alan prayed she was still alive, remembering he had told her exactly where to dig up the sacred beast of the Golden Mane tribe. Golden Gauntlet that acted as a literal cheat code for fights, far away in the dusty desert nation known as the Colony. Selang panted heavily inside a dark cave. After a massive grind, flexing the shiny golden gauntlet on her arm, she looked absolutely unhinged and ready to catch bodies. The ancient bedtime stories were hardcore facts. The essence of the Golden Mane tribe was a legendary heirloom granting divine authority, and she now held all the heavy juice. She glows with a wild golden energy on the cliffside, celebrating having crushed every single brutal trial inside her mind, remembering how the great moon saved her life in that sick lab. She vows to become his most loyal and ultimate weapon, sworn to tear down the black dragon that slaughtered her beloved parents. A massive golden beast aura flares behind her as she embraces her path to become the ultimate gladiator and reunite her long-lost family. Stepping out into the deep purple night, she blasts a massive golden laser straight into the clouds, her eyes burning with raw fanatic energy as she prepares to tear through the desert under a massive blue moon. Meanwhile, Elaine is casually browsing through some dull paperwork when Yubian pops up like a bad warning sign. The one-eyed knight offhandedly mentions that he completely forgot to share some juicy street rumors yesterday. Word from the Info Guild is that their squad is causing quite a stir, with that foxy blonde tearing up the colony under her ridiculous new nickname, Golden Flash. Elaine laughs, satisfied that his wild little troublemakers are staying fed and active. Then he asks about Radon, hoping the white-haired kid is behaving himself. In Rexus, Yubian says the trail is dry right now, but they are still digging. To Shady Luds, Elaine asks if Yubian is busy, immediately getting attitude from a guy who already finished his chores. Elaine sighs and tells him they need to pack their bags right away for a massive road trip. A whole month of non-stop riding just to reach the magical tower. Naturally, Yubian complains that the green magic tower is only a week away. But Elaine shuts that down fast. They are actually heading straight to the blue magic tower situated right next to the massive labyrinth city. Elaine is already dreading the bumpy carriage ride. His backside is going to be totally raw, but he has no choice because he desperately needs a special artifact to boost his tiny, pathetic mana pool. Elaine drifts off, remembering his old gaming days, grinding that exact map. It was the perfect leveling zone where everyone dug deeper like total maniacs, and he even used cheat codes to drill down to floor 150 back then. He remembers the insane loot and high-tier appraisers who helped secure the gear. He also remembers Rain and her upcoming license exam. He is certain she will ace it, but worries if the cheap little charm he sent her is enough to help her handle heavy demands, deciding to send some extra help just in case. Of course, he has no idea what she is actually up to. The scene shifts to the dark, neon-drenched streets of Lania, a lawless haven for dangerous mercenaries. Deep down a dark alleyway, a highly exclusive appraisal shop is quietly making big moves. Inside, the green-haired Rain is working the counter, catering to the elite class of noble clients. Right now, she is smooth-talking the lord of the city itself, demonstrating a rare artifact that breathes out scorching flames. The noble is completely blown away by her talent. He thanks her warmly, and she calmly reaches for another massive relic to demonstrate her incredible skill. It turns out this hidden shop is famous for a unique technique called the imprint, and Rain holds up a brilliant golden eye relic to begin him for giving her the absolute best tools. A quick flashback hits where Alan is casually telling her to become an appraiser. At first, she was completely lost, failing to understand his weird cosmic plan. She fully believes her boss is an ancient outer god destroying the dark forces of this world, but how does running a pawn shop do that? It made zero sense until she touched that golden eye. Instantly, her brain flipped into full fanatic mode. She did not realize this truth-seeking eye instantly judges dirty items. It was way different from the textbooks. This thing was completely off the charts, wrapped in dark chains, demanding heavy sacrifices to level up. When she broke the seals, the giant eye opened and told her what to feed it to unlock the raw power to crush their enemies. She must give this relic a massive diet of high-tier artifacts. A system screen shows she needs 252 more sacrifices to unlock it. She just smirks, only she has the insane mental capacity to do this. She stares right at the golden eye, swearing her absolute loyalty. To her dark master, the scene jumps forward 3 weeks to a massive glowing magic tower piercing the clouds. A blue-haired girl with nasty attitude tells Alan the tower master is away, so get lost. This is Vice Master Petia Clint. Alan recognizes her from the game and tries playing it cool, claiming he is here to seal a time rift. Petia stares him down, totally disgusted by his weak power level. Get lost, she says. Alan panics. This is completely off script. He practically begs her to let him clear the dungeon for some quick loot. She completely snaps at him, yelling that every pathetic loser comes begging for a free handout. She totally roasts him, calling him a lucky fraud who just wants a cheap stunt. Alan stands there taking the absolute beating, thinking she is terrifyingly strong with that heavy mana pressure, but he is desperate enough to bet his entire fortune on a magical contract just to get inside. Petia leads him to a massive cracked door, fully prepared to take his money when he fails. She glares at him, mocking his tiny manticore and calling his whole existence utterly pathetic. Usually, these temporal rifts seal up on their own after dropping some random loot, but this one has been stuck for 2 years. The floor is completely shattered with blue energy as Alan steps up to the glowing mess. Petia tells him to turn back, mocking him for using his bare hands instead of a proper magical staff. She calls his primitive style unbelievable and warns him to stop playing pretend, but before she can even blink, the room freezes solid. Her entire body locks up. A massive, terrifying storm of pure crimson energy explodes from Alan, forming a giant demonic eye that swallows the entire room. Heavy cracks shatter the tower floor as Vice Master Petia stares at Alan like he is a complete monster, sweating buckets. Her mind goes totally blank. Suddenly, her special observation eye activates on its own, spinning a blue magic circle to scan the dangerous red zone flooding the room. As her magic eye tries to break down, Alan's core danger signs scream inside her head. This walking, looming disaster felt too dangerous, so she tried to stop her racing thoughts. Ruined life. Just like that, a massive, terrifying red demonic eye popped open. Glowing hands reached out. The harsh red energy demanded absolute submission from her. She gulped hard under the crushing pressure. Outside, the giant blue gate slammed completely shut. Elaine dusted off his coat and calmly announced that the rift was closed as if it were some simple daily chore. Inside, he knew he needed some serious cheat items to get things done, hoping his fake magic trick had successfully fooled the blue-haired girl. He glanced at Petia. She was shaking, while covering her mouth, swearing she would never expose his secret. Elaine was left completely clueless, wondering if his bluff had failed since she looked so terrified. He told her to cut the dramatic act, but Petia completely lost her mind. She screamed at the top of her lungs, promising to take his secret to her grave. Desperate to escape her frantic energy, Elaine prepared to leave, but Petia suddenly lunged to block his path. She aggressively shoved a bright briefcase right into his face, begging him to take her premium handmade healing potions. Elaine took a glowing blue vial, utterly shocked because these tiny bottles cost more than a luxury estate, but a terrified Petia was desperate for even a single drop of validation. He wondered why she was acting so submissive over a basic dungeon run, sweating and completely misreading the entire vibe. Petia suddenly offered to bind herself with a magical oath. Before Elaine could intervene, heavy blue magical chains erupted around her body, binding her soul to strict secrecy. She beamed like a proud puppy, and he simply accepted his fate, taking 5 free potions. Later on, their elegant carriage rolled away from the blue magic tower. Once inside, he fastened a basic-looking dungeon seal bracelet to his wrist. He watched the gems absorb free mana from the air to fill his tiny mana pool. He chuckled at his miserable stats. His only real goal was staying alive and doing quiet research. His mind flashed back to telling Petia he was merely a weak second circle wizard, remembering how she gave him a terrified thumbs up. Elaine wondered if she was silently mocking him, but decided he did not care, planning to ghost her forever anyway. Look at where the story heads next, to the massive white stone estate of Duke Altia. Inside, Loria hosted Lady Zenonia, cutting right through the polite small talk. Zenonia praised Count Palacio fully, convinced Elaine was playing some grand strategic chess game with their lives. She showed Loria a messy apology letter from Elaine, which complained that very few nobles matched his relaxed style. Loria stared at the note with intense eyes, totally Convinced this casual message was secretly a coded hit list, Zenonia flashed a sharp smile, eager to decode their master's non-existent execution orders. Zenonia quickly listed every powerful politician named in the letter, concluding that Elaine wanted to force the old leaders out and build a completely new regime. Loria reached total enlightenment, believing Elaine had handed her a duke title simply to exploit her reputation for a political takeover. Grinning like loyal cult members, they began plotting how to topple the government for their master. Meanwhile, back at the Blue Magic Tower, Vice Master Pedia looked deeply traumatized as she gave her report to the Count. Palacio was a walking disaster, pure chaos. Meanwhile, other random as pieces of a grand misunderstanding fell into place, Alon choked on a sweet potato next to his campfire, totally unaware of the massive war brewing in his name, water. He gulps it down, crying to go home and read a letter from his favorite psycho, Eudia. Far off, a grand church tower stood tall under a starry purple sky. Eudia stood there wearing a holy nun habit with a shiny golden cross, glancing back over her shoulder with a breathtaking yet completely terrifying smile. Meanwhile, the old master of the Blue Magic Tower returned to his quarters, searching for his apprentice Pedia. He hoped for a warm welcome, but quickly realized his private security lock was gone, entirely missing. Pushing the door open, he finds Pedia collapsed across her cluttered desk, looking utterly exhausted and hollowed out. She weakly whispered that the job was done, leaving the master completely stunned. This apprentice usually acted incredibly arrogant, so seeing her this lifeless was totally shocking. He remembered putting up with her bad attitude, believing that climbing to the higher magic circles would naturally crush her massive ego. The master leaned closer, asking if her journey up north had been too brutal. Pedia dropped the bomb, revealing that Count Palacio sealed the fractured time gate without exerting any effort. The master demands answers, but she stays entirely silent due to her strict magical oath. He realizes the Count wielded a power that even a prodigy could not comprehend, and his thoughts immediately turned to the legendary origin source. The elder reached out and gently patted her head. She just takes it, too completely sad to even resist. So dejected that she did not brush his hand away, the old man smiled, realizing that this mysterious count from a backwater territory was an absolute legend. A full month passes, and the scene shifts back to Alon testing his powers. Out in the wilderness, he examines his sleek black bracelet, thrilled that it allows him to cast multiple times. He takes careful notes on his spell combinations. Knowing that stacking words creates massive damage, he then unleashes a heavy gravity spell straight down. The ground shatters, cracked wide open. Watching the destruction, Yabin points out his master's power is unreal. Lon secretly understands this insane, sudden jump in raw might. It comes from arranging words like a literal cheat code, yet he lies to himself immediately, just woke up strong, that's his story. Yabin walks over with a brand new letter from Eudia, instantly bringing a giant grin to the young man's face. Alon takes the mail and decides to head back, concluding his practice now that his magical reserves are fully depleted. Heading home, Alon questions why his spells pack such an intense punch. He wonders if he unknowingly triggered some sinister curse to boost his attributes, or if multitudes are actually offering prayers to him, though he quickly laughs off the ridiculous thought. The setting then suddenly shifts to the radiant sacred territory of Rosario. Bathed beneath a massive glowing full moon, a dashing knight named Lakich enters the courtyard, bowing deeply before a gorgeous nun. Eudia stands in her fitted sacred robes, looking incredibly stunning despite being bound in heavy iron chains. Although she possesses no true divine aura, Lakich treats her with absolute reverence, eagerly reporting that he has successfully secured a he saved plenty of kids and southern villagers with her guidance, admitting he owed his entire career to Eudia after she dragged him out of his darkest hour. Years back, he felt completely miserable over having such weak holy power, nearly ready to drop his sword and quit for good, until Eudia told him to pray to the moon instead. He spent days begging the night sky for strength, and his holy weapon miraculously flared with brilliant light. He felt deeply guilty about abandoning the temple goddess, but the holy power he gained was absolutely undeniable. Latch asked why she made him look toward the night sky when he was struggling. Eudia flashed a predatory crimson eye and softly whispered that it is far easier to believe in things you can actually see. She effortlessly tricked the gullible knight, convincing him the moon was the watching goddess. Looking down on them, Latch believed her entirely, bowing low to his waist. While offering endless thanks for her guidance, she flashed a sharp, beastly grin and welcomed him inside to join her for a special service. Together, they walked through heavy wooden doors, entering a grand cathedral packed to the brim with devoted believers. Eudia slowly climbed the glowing violet steps toward the altar, ready to lead her daily sermon. Turning to face the massive crowd, she commanded everyone to begin praying, completely bypassing the goddess to order worship for the great moon instead. Talk about an absolute masterclass in manipulation, showing she had just hijacked an entire religion for her beloved master. Meanwhile, Elaine sat slumped in his office chair, completely drained. He stared out the massive, sunlit window, feeling utterly lonely and forgotten. He read another dry update letter, weeping silently because almost none of his foster kids ever bothered to write back, save for his faithful eldest daughter. He tried playing the saint, convincing himself they only saw him as a bank. Elaine lied to himself, arguing he only raised them to prevent global destruction. Not because he actually craved their company. He took a heavy breath but struggled to find any inner peace. The cold silence stung. He reared 5 legendary, dangerous figures, yet only his eldest showed him any real gratitude. He hid his face, shedding quiet, pathetic tears while pretending he was perfectly fine. Suddenly, Yebin shattered his gloomy thoughts, startling Elaine so badly he nearly tumbled. From his luxurious chair, Yebin produced a small, rolled parchment from the Spy Guild. Holding crucial new intelligence on his rogue foster children, Elaine scrambled upright, absolutely dying to know what wild stunts Radon was pulling out there. Yebin handed over the parchment, explaining they had just cracked the coded street slang. Elaine instantly pictured the free-spirited Radon, wearing a ridiculously oversized straw hat. Grinning like an absolute lunatic, apparently the boy proudly declared he had officially run off to become a pirate. Yebin then broke the dad's heart further, explaining that Seeing and Days were causing absolute chaos. Seeing had just crushed 32 consecutive challengers in the arena, paving a bloody path to the reigning champion. Elaine broke out in a sweat. Her next opponent was the legendary Lion King, a supposedly invincible boss. He realized his fierce blonde little monster was already clearing late-game content with absolute ease. Yebin then moved on to Days, reporting that the Brooding Knight had completely annihilated a terrifying barbarian leader. Named Kurga, Elaine remembered these fierce barbarians from his past gaming days. They were literal superhumans, yet he would not even have to face their unstoppable deity anymore because Days had already taken out the trash, he decided. He stopped worrying about the edgy kid, assuming Days was living like a legend. He still wondered if he should have gone to see them in person. He checked the reports on Ryan and felt glad she was quietly running her shop. But then reality hit him hard, and he demanded to know how Radan actually pulled this off. Yuobin explained that the kids sailed out to the islands for their takeover. They forcefully stole the top captain's seat on the island. Alan grabbed his head in sheer panic because those pirate captains were incredibly strong. His parenting failed completely. He was left in absolute despair. He was left sad, wondering where he went wrong as the scene shifted across the map. We arrive in the sunny city of Rexus, a playground for sea thugs. Just off the coast lay a massive archipelago, serving as a pirate paradise. A shattered sword on the wooden docks proved the legendary pirate king had fallen. The new captain, Radan, sat casually with his white hair blowing in the wind. He smirked like a man who took the top spot while Narudin sighed. He was completely confused about the Great Moon or these strange orders. To him, Alan was just a wealthy guy who paid his bills. But Yuya had forced him to finally wake up his dormant, devastating sea powers. Radan held his head, exhausted by the mission, until a realization hit him. This pirate job aligned perfectly with his own deep plans for revenge. A quick flashback reveals the sunny island where his peaceful family used to live. Out of nowhere, dark shadows slaughtered his family. Radan barely survived, only to be captured by hunters who killed his parents. They dragged him away, selling him off like cheap livestock. It left him broken and filled with an absolute, pure hatred for humanity. Back in the present, he decides to play along with the crew for now. His new position gives him the perfect cover to hunt down his enemies. Nearby, a massive pirate festival is underway with thugs drinking and celebrating. They bragged about a heavenly blessing, but Radan just watched in silence. His blue eyes glowed with rage as he realized how they got their powers. That blessing was actually a dark ritual fueled by his family's stolen power. Talk about twisted. It required using the sacrificed body of a sea god. He watched them party, disgusted that every captain used his parents' life force. Radan's face twisted with fury as he realized what the hunters did. They had slaughtered and sold his parents piece by piece for mere gold. His glowing eyes locked onto the crowd as violent water energy erupted behind him. Fireworks explode across the night sky above a massive, dark pirate ship. Radan stands in the shadows, flexing his crackling lightning powers like a menace. He grumbles about how the great moon casually handed him this golden opportunity. This was the absolute perfect setup for his bloody revenge. He realizes his enemies are relying entirely on stolen, artificial sea god powers. Gripping his golden pendant, he realizes his benefactor gave him a massive cheat code. We get a quick flashback, dropping deep into the dark blue ocean depths. There, Radan dives straight into the ocean. He uses a glowing amulet called Amrita's Goggles to completely drain the area. He pulls up ancient artifacts from hidden underwater vaults to cover his tracks. Staring at his own weak stats on the beach, he realizes he was acting like a total clown. Sending a simple thank you text was not enough. The Great Moon literally handed him the weapon and the green light to wipe out the entire server. Radan smirks. Like a complete psycho, finally understanding the vibe of his master's cryptic mafia. Orders, he vows to brutally hijack the 7 archipelagos and eliminate every single target for the Great Moon. Fast forward 3 months later to crispy autumn leaves. Falling on a bumpy carriage ride, our boy Alan sits inside looking completely exhausted and totally annoyed. He is forced to attend a boring networking party alongside some snobby neighboring families just to avoid street bandits. Later that evening, Alan parks his absolute dump truck at a cheap tavern to chill. With a wooden mug, 2 wrinkled nobles immediately slide up to his table and start insulting his empty pockets straight to his face. They mock him for only having 1 guard, laughing that this lucky brat is completely broke and powerless, knowing he dropped the toxic family hustle, leaving his turf wide. Most of us know exactly how it feels to get insulted by haters while checking a dry bank account, but Alan completely ignores the noisy haters, realizing they are just victims of his dead brothers. Past bullying, he figures these absolute losers are just venting their crusty daddy issues on him for no reason. Yuban suddenly slides back into the room. Holding a massive plate of hot roasted corn, Alan happily shoves the thick cob right into his mouth, totally vibing with the sweet corn. He chews his food like a peaceful potato, completely ignoring the toxic arguments around him. The scene violently cuts to the freezing north, where a bunch of dead barbarians are resting in pieces. A giant, bleeding barbarian chief named Kurga crawls through the snow looking absolutely pathetic. He spits pure venom at the Caliban knights who baited him into a fake duel and blindsided him from behind. This massive beefcake is literally crying about honor while bleeding out like a total loser in the dirt. He wheezes and curses, totally unable to accept the massive loss and die in peace. Suddenly, a giant, creepy voice echoes inside the dying man's head, telling him to stop whining and start praying. Dark snowflakes drop as the voice demands Kurga scream the name of his ultimate god to get saved. Kurga violently stretches his thick hand forward, begging the great god Altus to save his failing life. A giant blue demonic face flashes on with a wicked, toothy grin. The cursed god promises to grant his desperate wish. Meanwhile, the bumpy carriage ride continues through crunchy red autumn leaves, while the absolute worst neighbors tag along. The 2 snobby nobles laugh their heads off, mocking our boy Alan for eating cheap snacks like a broke loser, but he completely ignores the haters, choosing to block out the noise like a true professional. Dodging their toxic bait, later that night, the squad sets up a campfire where Alan and Yuban munch on hot roasted fish. Our hero clearly wins the mental war, happily enjoying some hot sausages while the crusty haters boil in the dark, leaving those snobby nobles sweating and completely terrified. Knights quickly turn around as massive glowing red eyes pop out of the dark woods, ready to claim fresh victims. A wizard shoots a bright bursts into the sky, exposing a nasty horde of ugly green goblins charging straight toward the camp. The guards let their defense slip, laughing off the threat as weak forest trash. They think they are just acting tough, but that confidence instantly evaporates. These freaks are actually completely jacked and covered in glowing purple crystals. The beefy monsters storm the camp, ripping right through the defensive front line. They turn the late-night shift into a brutal, one-sided bloodbath. Panicked guards scream that these mutated monsters are overflowing with dark magic. They slice right through steel armor with insane physical force. A massive purple dome shield pops up, leaving a stressed-out mage sweating bullets. While the soldier wonders who the mysterious wizard is, Alan steps up. Our protagonist prepares to handle the mess, channeling his wild magic. He whispers ancient forbidden words to build a massive glowing gravity sphere. The vacuum ball shoots skyward, violently pulling in the colossal monsters. Sucked in, the pressure instantly crushes the giant goblins to dust. With the path cleared, Alan orders the dazed nobles to stop looking useless. Snapping out of their shock, the guards cut down the remaining green freaks. They survive the night raid, just as the morning sun peeks over trees. Aristocrats stare at Alan's back like he is a literal god. But inside, completely cooked, our boy is sweating bullets. He is panicking because he almost got sent straight to the grave. Using his limited magic pool too fast left his body completely drained. Yubai checks on his master, but Alan acts tough, claiming he is fine. He talks big even though he is shaking like a wet noodle. Firepower gone, losing his massive firepower is terrifying. Traveling with these annoying neighbors actually turned out to be a lifesaver. He stares at the dead goblin, realizing this nasty mutation is a divine descent. It stresses him out because these outer god anomalies should not be appearing. They only drop when his adopted children destroy the entire world. Holding his aching head, Alan realizes the worst timeline is rushing forward. It is moving much faster than planned. The exhausted crew finally rolls up. They finally arrive at the cathedral-like radical mansion. Alan literally leans on his loyal knight as they climb the fancy stairs, whimpering that he just wants to go home. Sleep. Next, Alan arrives at the luxurious radical estate for a grand gathering of nobles. The enormous hall glitters with gold decorations and giant chandeliers. Frankly, the extravagant place looks a lot more like a flashy church than a party. Watching this ridiculous display, Yubai jokes that the hosts are so obsessed with showing off that nobody would even notice if valuables vanished. Hearing this, Alan laughs quietly, though he already feels uncomfortable around these wealthy nobles who are obsessed with status and appearances. While exploring, he is suddenly approached by two nervous noblemen carrying expensive gifts and looking visibly terrified. One noble offers him a giant premium cut of meat decorated with a yellow ribbon, while the other presents a chest overflowing with gold. They claim the gifts are financial support for his territory, hoping he would accept their sincere contributions. Completely confused, Alan just stares at them in silence. He stayed silent, wondering why these strangers acted so weird. But his quiet stare looked like cold anger, making them panic. Soon we see why they were shaking. Flashback to yesterday. Both men had secretly watched Alan fighting out in the wild. He easily slaughtered powerful monsters right in front of them, using advanced lightning magic that was way too high level. Terrified, they brought the details to a skilled blue-haired mage. After checking the residual mana, the expert started shaking. She confirmed Alan's power easily blew past third-tier limits. Right then, the nobles realized the rumors about Alan were lies. He had definitely not gotten his title through mere luck. Instead, he was a ruthless genius, hiding some serious power. Making an enemy out of him would mean instant, painful death. So they gathered expensive peace offerings to beg for his favor. Now back at the banquet, their nerves finally snapped completely. Both nobles dropped straight to their knees, crying like babies. They begged Alan for mercy, though he had no idea why. Finding the scene incredibly embarrassing, Alan just ignored them completely. He quietly walked away without a word, desperate for some peace. Heading over to the buffet, he grabbed a warm egg tart. While eating, he enhanced his hearing to eavesdrop on the crowd. He overheard two guests discussing a massive secret political alliance. It apparently involved several high-ranking, powerful families in the kingdom. The gossip got even wilder when they named the secret mastermind. To his absolute shock, they revealed the shadow boss running things. They claimed Count Palacio was pulling all the strings secretly. Hearing his own title dragged into this absolute nonsense shocked him. In pure disbelief, he accidentally dropped his egg tart. Wild rumors were spreading everywhere, completely unrelated to reality. Before he could even process this, a young noble approached him. The newcomer introduced himself with a smug, confident grin. His name was Carmine, the third son of Duke Callan from Ashtalon. Right away, Carmine started mocking Alan as a lucky fraud. He dismissed him as someone with zero real achievements. But we soon see the real reason for this sudden hostility. Carmine had traveled a long way to propose to a Lothagru daughter. Unfortunately, she had rejected his proposal flat out, showing zero interest. Humiliated and angry, Carmine wanted an easy target to bully. And he figured Alan would be a perfectly safe punching bag. But get this, things did not go down the way he expected. Suddenly, three heavyweights stepped forward, including Duke Rodagri and Mark. Mardanio alongside Count Palin, they fiercely defended Alan from Carmine. They tore into Carmine for insulting someone so vital to them. The young noble realized he had just picked the worst opponent. Cold terror washed over him as his smug look completely vanished. Guests began sweating, trembling, and desperately looking for an exit. Panicking completely, Carmine dropped to the floor, begging and apologizing for his disrespectful behavior. After making an absolute fool of himself, he fled the gathering. Everyone just stared. What a dramatic retreat. Once the commotion settled, the powerful nobles checked to see if Alan was offended. That is when it clicked. Alan finally realized that these elites actually believed the wildest rumors about him. He had to stop this. He prepared to explain everything, revealing the rumors were complete lies. But before he could speak, Marquino stepped forward. He offered an extremely rare mana storage relic. The magical treasure was priceless. Alan immediately saw its value. Free treasure. Yes, please. He instantly abandoned his plan to clear the air. Instead, he happily accepted the relic while his system confirmed he had received some top-tier magical items and recovery potions. Later that night, Marquino headed to a secret meeting. Inside a quiet estate, there a mysterious woman was waiting for him. It was none other than the incredibly influential Duke Altia. During their talk, Marquino explained that giving such a valuable relic meant one thing: allegiance. By accepting it, Alan had essentially agreed to their alliance without even knowing. Duke Altia smiled, completely satisfied. They were on the same side now, working under Alan's leadership. Meanwhile, clueless Alan had just accidentally become the absolute center of a massive, fast-growing political movement. Talk about failing upwards. Later on, Duke Altia and Marquino discussed their brand new alliance. The Marquis is absolutely thrilled with how things are going. He notes that Duke Altia rarely gets involved in political schemes. This is a big deal. Yet here she is, hand-picking the perfect allies to join them. The rules are simple: pay up. Sincere bribes are the only entry fee. Marquino knows the rumors are spreading like wildfire, but he sees this as a goldmine, a political opportunity he must grab immediately. Meanwhile, the grand banquet reaches its fourth day. For Alan, it is a goldmine. He has been making an insane amount of profit. All those wealthy nobles keep showering him with incredibly expensive gifts. Why? Because of those ridiculous rumors linking him to Duke Altia and Count Zenonia. It is working perfectly. The nobles truly believe he is some legendary mastermind. Who is he to complain? He decides to keep the charade going and exploit the situation. He accepts every single item, secretly planning to take it all and run before they catch on. But his peaceful moment is suddenly interrupted when his subordinate Evan quietly appears right behind him. Evan brings highly disturbing news from his latest intelligence gathering. According to his reports, a terrifying entity known as an outer god has suddenly descended upon the northern region of Caliban. The entire area is in absolute chaos. Ancient texts warn that those entities are straight-up lethal. Plus, Yui reports that he has successfully found the exact person Elaine was desperately searching for. This target is currently living in a tiny village just north of the Ashtalon Kingdom. Without wasting a single second, Elaine commands Yui to pack up for an immediate departure. During the ride, Elaine falls into heavy, anxious thoughts. He is quietly panicking about the early arrival of the outer god. In the original storyline of the game he played, those calamitous monsters bring nothing but absolute destruction. He recalls the terrible endings from that game where the allied kingdoms inevitably crumble and completely collapse. They would fight stupid wars on lands completely corrupted by otherworldly powers. Elaine realizes that if this happens, his comfy, wealthy life gets instantly shattered. but he quickly formulates a genius survival plan based on a hidden mechanic. Whenever an outer god descends, it does not immediately have full power. Instead, it must undergo a weak stabilization period for several months before fully waking up. During this weak phase, they cannot use their true strength. Elaine determines that striking them during this exact window is the only real option. He meticulously writes down a plan, sealing it with purple wax, quietly hoping that a certain young boy will accept his upcoming offer. 1 week later, Elaine and Yui arrive at a quiet, peaceful village. They quickly spot a cheerful kid with messy blue hair and bright eyes. Elaine instantly recognizes him as Alaban, the game's actual main character and playable protagonist of this dark fantasy world. The boy cheerfully introduces himself. Completely clueless about his future destiny, Elaine observes him carefully, noting that the protagonist will inevitably become famous and ridiculously powerful. Instead of wasting time playing nice, Elaine decides on a bizarre high-speed strategy. He hands the boy a single gold coin, and then Yui steps forward to dump a massive pile of treasures, high-tier potions, and rare magic artifacts, letting endless gold spill onto the ground. The young protagonist is utterly shocked by this mountain of wealth. Elaine explains that this is simply an early investment to help the kid grow exceptionally strong in a very short amount of time. Internally, Elaine desperately hopes the boy will level up fast and defeat the outer gods for him. Elaine formally introduces himself by his noble title, telling the boy to always remember his generous patron. The young hero happily promises that he will never forget this kindness. As they leave in their carriage, Yui expresses confusion over Elaine's brief interaction with the boy. Elaine thinks to himself that his very life is currently on the line, so he does not have the luxury of time to build a genuine bond. Instead, he has effectively put the main character on an automatic hunting mode using a pay-to-win strategy. Yui then points out strange detail. He noticed that the young boy already possessed incredibly thick, swirling mana and was wearing high-tier magical artifacts despite his ordinary clothes. Elaine realizes this is a major deviation from the game's original setting, where the hero starts as a completely ordinary commoner. This butterfly effect surprises him, but he ultimately decides it is a good thing. Elaine wanted a strong hero to guarantee his own lazy lifestyle. He comforts himself by remembering that Alelenin is one of the very few truly kind people left. Then it happens. A massive wave of pure anxiety washes over Alan. Is the boy really that nice? He panics, desperately needing to find out if his memory is real. He urgently asks Ibn about Dees, his face turning pale. Alan admits he never visited the orphanage because he feared the painful consequences, nervously wondering if they will even allow him near the place. Allow him to see the children. 10 days into their exhausting journey, the crew finally arrives at Kurdum, the massive entrance gate to Caliban. Ibn is straight up dead on his feet from nonstop driving along the endless roads. Our main hero keeps his cool, even though the brutal commute took a massive toll. Ibn starts complaining that a crazy maze made the last leg a total nightmare. Alan tightly grips his locket, stressing over the upcoming battle. He spent all this time gathering raw strength and finding gifts for a kid named Dees. Honestly, Alan feels like an excited dad who wants to spoil his kid rotten. Ibn steps out of the carriage to get their identification checked at the border. The hero takes a quick nap until Ibn returns with some terrible news. They are being ordered to pull over despite having perfectly legal papers. Alan steps out of the ride and confronts a guard named Varen. This cocky knight brags about training under the legendary 4th Swordmaster. Varen begins trash-talking our protagonist, calling over his squad to flex his power. He proudly mentions some noble from the Asteria kingdom hired him to settle an old grudge. Alan instantly connects the dots and realizes who this idiot is talking about. That drama queen Carmine. Talk about pathetic. This whole thing is hilarious. A quick flashback shows Carmine crying to Varen through a magic screen, crying about getting humiliated and begging Varen to crush Alan. Varen had simply laughed it off, promising to put on a massive show for his friend, believing there is zero risk in targeting a simple nobleman. Out of nowhere, the guards draw their weapons and completely box in our hero and Ibn. Ibn instantly draws his own blade to protect his master. Alan is just annoyed that Carmine's petty tantrums followed him all the way here. Varen points his blade directly at Alan's chest and demands they hand over all their treasures, confident he will get away with it. Since Alan is a complete stranger here, but our hero is done playing games and channels a deadly flame. Varen charges forward to strike, but someone suddenly grabs him right by the throat. The mysterious attacker snaps Varen's neck and hoists him into the air like a rag doll. The knight shrieks in pain as his sword clatters to the ground. It turns out Deez is the giant holding Varen by the throat. Deez is absolutely furious that some random trash dared to threaten his beloved master. He slams the knight into the dirt and starts stomping him with furious rage. Deez warns the other guards that they are going to catch hands next if they even flinch. He kicks Varen so hard the knight coughs up blood and flies through the air. Alan watches in complete shock, finally recognizing the young man as the grown-up version of Deez. His former student has truly transformed into an absolute monster. Varen can barely crawl as Deez stands over. He lands heavy hit after heavy hit. Yuban notes those punches look incredibly clean and dangerous. Alan is completely shocked. He honestly assumed Deez had totally ghosted him over the years. Seeing how well his kid turned out makes him feel incredibly proud. Hugo cracks a joke that Alan's boy is literally deleting a guy's health bar in public. Alan plays totally dumb, but deep down, he absolutely loves how loyal the kid is. He thinks Deez is a sweetheart for standing up to defend his dad's honor. But at the same time, he worries, is this beating going a bit too far? Alan suddenly remembers a crucial detail. Deez is actually one of the 5 legendary criminals. Finally, Varen passes out cold, completely defeated. Deez stops the beatdown and drops a respectful bow. The remaining guards are completely shook to see a powerhouse acting like a personal bodyguard. To see a powerhouse like Deez act like a bodyguard is unreal, a freezing battlefield is a graveyard, a total disaster zone in the freezing snow. Commander Delman hoists his glowing blade to celebrate completely wiping out the enemy boss. Culkin and his entire crew, the Crimson Flame Knights, shout at the top of their lungs, hyped over their hard-won victory against the wild tribes. Commander Delman tells his squad to head back to camp and get ready for the next move. The boss reflects on his win and vows he will not let the new Master Knight boss him around. He knows they only won the war by playing dirty instead of fighting fair. The enemy chief was baited out solo and ambushed by a sneaky stealth squad. Delman curses the guy who planned this shady trick, but he still gets ready to send his winning report. But get this, out of nowhere, a stranger suddenly appears right by the front camp, catching the commander completely off guard. The mysterious stranger calls out Delman's name with an incredibly dark, intense look. Furious, Delman swings with his burning sword, but he instantly feels an incredibly creepy, terrifying vibe. He realizes the guy standing there is not the chief he thought he already killed. A horrifying, monstrous shadow takes shape behind the man who calls out the knights for ruining what should have been a sacred one-on-one. Delman freezes from pure terror as cold sweat drips down his face. He realizes this creature is not Culkin at all, but something far more dangerous. He throws a bunch of desperate fire attacks at him, but the mysterious man dodges every single one easily. The mysterious guy decides to give Delman one last shot at a fair fight. The commander frantically orders his men to trap him, but the creature just smirks. Pure dark energy pools in his hands as he tells the knights they do not even deserve a proper duel. He unleashes a nasty, dark poison that infects the dead bodies scattered across the floor. The fallen soldiers start screeching like zombies and beg to be put out of their misery because the pain is just too intense. The man slices Delman's neck with his bare hand and slams the icy ground with unbelievable power. A massive blast blows them away. Red fog fills the air. He punches a straight hole right through Delman's chest, finishing him off for good. Talk about a brutal way to go, he calls them weak savages, while the dead soldiers stand up to trap the living survivors. He announces that a bloody arena match is kicking off just as the tribal god Ultras descends from above. Ultras demands the knights prove they are not just wild beasts by throwing hands, as actual blood pours from the clouds. Back at the city gates, Deus bows with deep respect and offers to lead the way for Alan, leaving the nearby guards completely speechless. They cannot believe a legendary fighter would bow his head to some random foreign noble. Deus is notorious for only respecting the king, and he even thrashed a prince before. The guards scratch their heads in total confusion, wondering who Alan actually is to receive this kind of treatment. Alan feels a bit stressed under all those staring eyes as he is ushered into a fancy carriage. They arrive at a massive, glowing mansion that Alan thinks looks exactly like a giant crab. Step inside, and the atmosphere becomes incredibly heavy and silent. Alan decides to be straightforward about his plans to show Deus proper respect. He steps into the room and asks Deus for a major favor, which catches the young warrior off guard. Deus instantly agrees to help, realizing this is a polite request rather than a harsh order. Soon, they share tea in a pretty awkward, stiff silence. Alan quietly smiles, secretly loving how he gets treated like a proud father. He finally breaks the ice, bringing up two heavy requests for the young fighter. First, Alan explains he has to travel up north and suggests they travel together. Deus gets genuinely excited and reveals that he was already planning a trip up north himself. Alan lets out a sigh of relief, glad his first big request went so smoothly with his old student. Next, Alan drops his second, much riskier request regarding the king's treasury. He explains he needs to get his hands on a specific artifact known as the Madman's Ring. Meanwhile, a knight salutes the commander and reports that the escort mission went perfectly, noting that Deus handled the security for Count Paleo himself, keeping the entire journey safe. Just then, Deus's little sister walks in, instantly piecing things together and realizing this guest must be a very massive VIP. Everyone in the household is incredibly curious about this foreign noble from the Asteria Kingdom. Alan sits down with Deus, asking to borrow the Madman's Ring straight from the royal vault. Alan is secretly stressed, and a drop of sweat rolls down his face from the pressure. He knows asking for this is a massive request that could put him deeply in the king's debt, but without blinking an eye, Deus says he is completely down to help Alan out. Suddenly, Yuban steps into the room carrying some glowing boxes, apologizing for being so late. Alan hands the gifts over to Deus, highly recommending a sharp-looking gemstone tie. Deus accepts the gear but says he will wait until he is alone to unwrap everything. Alan panics for a split second, worrying the gift might be a complete flop, but realizes Deus is showing him ultimate respect because of their deep past history. Alan offers to cover any fallout caused by taking the ring, but Deus promises to acquire the magic item from the vault very quickly. Alan feels incredibly grateful seeing that his loyal student is ready to risk everything for him. Suddenly, Sally dashes into the room and runs straight to Yuban, hugging him tightly. Alan is thrown off by how close they are, then remembers he ordered Yuban to rescue her back. In the original game timeline, Sally met a tragic end, but here she is alive and well. Seeing her reminds Alan how much she looks like her brother. Out of nowhere, Deus's face goes ice cold, and he yanks his sister back. He recoils from Ibian's friendly vibe, barking at him to use a proper title. Stop acting like buddies, he snaps, as a dark, creepy energy flares up. He tells Ibian to shut his mouth, instantly making the whole room incredibly tense. It finally hits Delman that Deus is only nice to him for one reason. He saved Syl's life, but he was so focused on rewriting the future that he forgot. He completely forgot about this deep bond, but now Syl steps up to thank her hero. She drops a grateful bow for her rescue, giving Alan a genuinely warm feeling. It leaves Alan with a warm feeling. A single day later, Delman rolls back in. He hands over the Madman's Ring, completely blowing Alan away with his speed. He raided a royal vault incredibly fast. Then Irem bursts in with some wild gossip. Delman caused a massive scene at the treasury, actually slapping the second prince. He slapped him just to grab the ring. 3 days later, Alan prepares to move. He links up with the Solar Eclipse Knights for the long road trip up north. 2 weeks fly by, and they get awful news from the northern front line. Squads are getting wiped out as creepy monsters butcher the soldiers. Frozen zones are a mess, and the camp collapses into chaos as commanders argue. They argue about running away, but Raiden quickly shuts up the yelling officers. He discusses the ugly situation with Folia, the fourth sword master. Almost all the top-tier fighters are dead or broken by the cosmic entity. Folia insists they retreat as a creepy red fog begins to spread nearby. Only the absolute strongest warriors can even feel this bizarre distortion in the air. Delman spots some smoke nearby and finds Alan just chilling over an open fire. He is calmly roasting a sweet potato, completely unfazed by all the surrounding death. Right next to them, the brilliant boss of the Blue Magic Tower is complaining. She is busy arguing about her research and refuses to help the wounded soldiers. She claims she only came to study tribal rituals, ignoring the suffering troops. She gets annoyed and tells Deus to back off, but then she suddenly freezes. She starts shaking like a leaf when she catches Alan calmly watching her. With a pale, frozen face, she demands to know what he is doing there. The hero just glares back, his piercing gaze completely cold and silent. Delman casually waves to Pedia, the vice commander, and signals her to come over. She nervously approaches, trembling as she mumbles that a vital medicine is gone. He says he understands, but his disappointed look instantly makes Pedia panic. She immediately flips her script, desperately promising that she can make the medicine. Even if it takes forever, she will do it. Meanwhile, Alan admits he is broke. He asks to put it on his tab, which absolutely terrifies Pedia. She quickly agrees to accept just one single gold coin for the entire batch. Her crew is completely stunned to see her smiling after such a massive loss. She rushes off to brew the potion, leaving the other mages utterly speechless. Delman simply goes back to eating his food, completely ignoring the drama. Suddenly, an incredibly heavy wave of dark energy suffocates the entire area. Deus senses an incoming raid, barking orders for his troops to stand ready. A horrific horde of undead surges from the darkness, instantly slaughtering the guards. The remaining soldiers push back hard, cursing the endless monsters. They desperately hack through the mindless waves of zombies, and Deus draws his blade. He unleashes devastating, high-level magic to snipe the undead corpses with surgical precision, once the first. Wave clears as a terrifying Piola steps out from a roaring blast. He mocks the soldiers for lacking honor as lightning wraps. Round his flesh, a soldier lunges to stab him, but the blade fails to leave. Any mark, Connell decapitates him instantly, proving that ordinary weapons cannot touch his soul, leaving the onlookers completely frozen. Fear, Alan remains completely composed and decides to address the powerful god of duels directly. He invokes a sacred covenant, challenging Piola to a Babylon showdown. The deity laughs like a maniac before locking it in and waking the dead bodies once more. A crimson ring instantly materializes around the two brawlers, sealing them inside a private arena. No outsiders can enter. Alan feels a sudden panic. Piola is nearing his ultimate form. He knows the god's power is already on par with the 5 greatest criminals. Our hero only remains standing because he chugged down an extremely high-grade, premium recovery potion. Right before combat, this turn-based duel begins now. Each combatant must alternate turns to strike or defend. Piola acts first and unleashes a highly devastating magical strike known as the Song of Ruin. The next rule states, the defender cannot move a single muscle outside their turn. The deity praises the mortal's courage, preparing to crush him. Piola strikes. Alan burns every of his remaining mana to reinforce his defensive barriers for the opening exchange. Dark magic erupts from his palms as he braces for the god's strike. The colossal impact triggers a blast, completely burying Alan in a thick smoke. Pedia and Daze watch with heavy hearts, desperately stressing that their ally has been vaporized, but the thick dust settles and Alan is still alive behind a fractured magical barrier. His body is completely shattered and his equipment is ruined, but the golden elixir keeps him conscious. A brief flashback reveals Pedia giving him 2 unique potions to endure severe pain and override his physical limits. His plan is working flawlessly as he prepares to strike back. The top-tier elixir allows the protagonist to move his broken limbs despite his severe injuries, instantly unleashing his inner beast as he activates a binding summon to sustain this deadly duel. The ring on his finger flashes, prepping his first devastating counterattack. System notification appears on screen, commanding him to display his true power in this ultimate Babylon duel. Alan notes that these rigid constraints are actually designed to restrict the god's movement, surviving that lethal strike. Using a resurrection charm and premium potions, Alan prepares to fully activate the Ring of Radiance. Activating it requires him to stand on the absolute brink of death while declaring his own harsh limitations. Since this is a sacred, holy duel, Alan cannot defend or counter. He hacks the system by locking in 4 highly specific self-imposed rules: casting spells on snowy terrain, casting magic while facing death, battling a literal god, invoking legendary spells meant only for the divine master of duels. With every single restriction locked in, Alan's mana levels skyrocket, ending in a furious surge of purple lightning. A blast erupts. As the smoke finally clears, a massive crater is torn clean through. The god takes the hit directly to his chest, but he stays standing and laughs. He trash talks the failed strike, but still respects Alan's heavy will. Slumped in the dirt, he admits he took serious damage and prepares to fade away. He is curious to watch the drama between those black and blue forces. As a reward, he hands Alan his personal magical gear, the Belt of the Forgotten. This legendary belt doubles both the damage you deal and the damage you receive. Right before vanishing completely, he finally drops his real name, the God of Chaos. With the fierce battle over, the victorious squad wraps up their journey and returns to the capital. Pedia, the magic vice leader, is left completely terrified after Alan questions her. Hearing about those mysterious black and blue entities sends her running out of the carriage in a total panic. Meanwhile, Dees meets with the king to return the sacred ring of radiance. Alan packs up his bags to head home, heavily rewarded with the king's bonus gold. Dees quietly asks if he will ever level up to be as strong as Alan. Alan, secretly jealous of the boy's natural talent, keeps his cool. He tells him that dedication to the endless grind will eventually make him an absolute beast. When Dees asks why Alan never orders him around, his master simply smiles. He says you do not boss around your own family, leaving Dees deeply moved. But once he is left alone inside his carriage, Alan completely bursts into a giant crying fit. He feels completely unappreciated for all the money and effort spent raising Dees. Back at base, Dees awkwardly tries mimicking Alan's signature hand gestures. He smiles to himself, deeply satisfied to have finally secured a place in a real family. After traveling 3 long months on the road, Alan finally rolls back to his safe space. He literally cries tears of pure relief as he enters his home. Too tired to even think straight, he accidentally stumbles into his dark home office instead. There he is hit with a terrifying mountain of neglected paperwork. He immediately slams the door shut in absolute disgust and tries to run from his chores. But duty eventually catches up with him, forcing him to face the pile. Hoping for a reward after his hard work, Alan decides to take a week-long vacation. However, his brain is so hardwired to the grind that he cannot relax. His hyperactive mind keeps drifting back to the mysteries surrounding that chaotic god and his strange warnings. He reviews his old research notes, trying to connect the ancient lore. His notes mention inheriting a sacred well hidden deep inside the ancient city of Kahala. Specifically, he realizes a hidden dungeon is destined to be discovered there. This legendary spot is destined to be discovered 3 years before the game's story even starts. And that timeline matches this exact year. Just then, Yabin walks in. He brings the shocking news that an underground city was recently uncovered right in Kelowna. Meanwhile, the 5 Sins hold their seasonal meeting through a magic crystal ball. Though usually the quietest member of the group, Dees suddenly speaks up to recap Alan's epic battle. His brief update quickly turns into a grueling 3-hour speech full of details. He spent the entire time hyping up his master's absolute genius. While Yui is absolutely loving every single detail, Raiden and the rest are left totally drained. They practically beg him to stop. Back at his home, Alan has another problem. He finds himself completely surrounded by incredibly expensive gifts sent over by random wealthy families. Realizing these freebies are all thanks to Dees, he happily pockets the loot. By the time summer rolls around, the mountain of treasure only grows larger. Things finally calm down, and Elaine gets ready to head out for the big meeting in the capital of Asteria. Elaine is arriving late, hoping to quietly blend into the background. Elaine tries to grab a seat way in the back, but the creepy, intense stares from the other rich snobs force him to keep moving up until he's sitting right in the front row. And get this, the meeting starts with a massive announcement. A brand new squad called Kalpa has officially been granted voting power. When the speaker calls out Kay Palacio as the boss of Kalpa, Elaine is left in total confusion. Spotting Alita and Ka smiling at each other, the painful truth hits him. They teamed up, and to his absolute horror, they put his name down as the leader of this massive new villain crew. Up in a freezing northern wasteland, a guy in a cloak treks through brutal, icy winds. He stops on a dime and looks over the empty land with a creepy smile. The traveler stares at a giant trench left behind from a previous godlike battle. He notes to himself that our main guy is starting to get noticed by some seriously heavy hitters. Meanwhile, far away, Elaine is dealing with a totally different mess inside a packed meeting room. A whole group of people had built a political alliance around him and were begging for a speech. The hero is secretly having a massive panic attack because he just wants a quiet life. He used to be a regular office worker and has absolutely zero interest in playing the boss, the chairman. Completely misreads his frozen silence, thinking he is incredibly cool and collected. Instantly, the room goes wild with celebrations, banners, and bright confetti flying everywhere, while the rich folks loudly cheer his name. Our poor main guy feels like he is trapped in a nightmare. He finally realizes he is being used as a flashy mascot for the squad. Later on, two big-shot duchesses walk straight up to the hero during the after-party, talking to him like he is some sort of genius mastermind who planned out everything, and honestly, it really feels like one day these noble girls will misread his letters and straight up offer their loyalty to this count. Elaine is completely lost because he barely even knows these two powerful women. They thank him for saving their lives, leaving him scratching his head. Trying to figure out why, the hero suddenly flashes back to a polite apology note he typed up weeks ago. His basic corporate office talk had been completely misunderstood. Vague lines about trust were misread as top-secret orders to recruit powerful new members. The truth hits him. All those expensive gifts he received were actually applications to join his crew. The protagonist feels entirely defeated by this bizarre misunderstanding. For massive ambition, he deeply worries that trying to set the record straight now will look like a total backstab. To keep himself safe, the hero decides to just keep playing along like he is in charge. He drops a vague comment about cleaning up the criminal underworld. The wealthy folks take his words as a bold, ambitious blueprint. For the future, Elaine quickly makes an excuse and bolts toward his waiting ride. He checks that a letter was sent out and barks orders at his driver to hit the gas. The duchesses watch him roll out, 100% convinced that he is a hidden genius. Meanwhile, lurking in the shadows, a hitman named Signes tracks down his target's ride. He is hunting Cal Palladio, but knows this gig won't be a walk in the park. The killer was already warned about a beast of a night playing bodyguard for the count. Even with the danger, he feels super confident because the payout for this direct hit was huge, ordered at a dark hideout south of Webtoon. The assassin Signes met Carmen, a client who acted incredibly arrogant. To flex his deadly skills, the killer instantly executed every single guard standing in the room. The client then offered a rare item called the Abyss Cube. This magical artifact was worth far more than normal equipment. Right after that, Signes instantly recognized its supreme value and locked in the deadly assassination contract. Later, he paid a visit to Seeker, the feared underworld kingpin. Seeker approved the hit, choosing to completely ignore the fact that the magic cube was stolen. The boss already knew about the Rising Squad Elaine secretly commanded. In fact, he was glad someone else was stepping up to eliminate a potential rival. Meanwhile, Elaine and Yabin were riding through a quiet, dense forest. They had absolutely no idea that Signes was hovering right above them now, preparing to strike. The hitman Signes used a magical feather pen for his attack. But in the single blink of an eye, an invisible force sliced his hands clean off. A massive beam of light slammed Signes straight into the ground. The devastating blast left the assassin entirely broken and defenseless. Under the bright, glowing moonlight, the powerful knight Elbin stepped out from the dark forest shadows. The knight remained perfectly calm despite executing such a violent act. He completed the entire execution in seconds, tearing the helpless hitman apart with zero real effort. After breaking the killer's magic tool, the silent knight quickly vanished. 5 days after leaving the capital city, Elaine finally arrived in the brutal, hot southern desert. The blazing desert sun beat down relentlessly on the traveling crew. The intense heat made every single breath feel like inhaling fire, as Yui Benin complained loudly. He pretended to be totally miserable, but Elaine completely ignored him. In reality, Elaine had delayed the entire journey on purpose to secure a safe merchant escort. He also wanted to buy a special gift before they left. While observing the other travelers, Elaine noticed a young girl named Leon staring at him suspiciously. As a local mage's daughter, she acted incredibly spoiled and rude. Elaine chose to ignore her endless trash talk because he did not want to argue. Instead, he focused entirely on safely crossing the hot sand dunes. All he wanted was to safely finish this long trip and finally say goodbye for good. But that night, a gang of savage raiders ambushed the camp. The campsite quickly turned into a crime scene as the hired guards were completely wiped out. The bandit leader grabbed Leon, who was paralyzed with absolute terror. Just when everything seemed totally hopeless, the hot desert air suddenly turned colder than absolute ice. Elaine stepped forward as freezing energy poured from his magical bracelet. With a single word, the boiling desert sand dunes instantly transformed into a barren frozen tundra. The bandit leader tried to strike, but Elaine instantly shattered him. Terrified after witnessing this display of insane power, the other thugs quickly ran for their lives. The grateful survivors treated Elaine to premium food and drinks. The hero quietly recalled the complex ice spells he had mastered. Leon walked over and bowed deeply to apologize for acting like a total jerk to him. She wanted to discuss magic, and Elaine surprisingly enjoyed the conversation. After traveling through the harsh lands for another week, they finally reached the city of Colony. Before they part ways, Leon invites Elaine to visit her red magic tower. Elaine looks up. He realizes he has business to handle at this exact spot. Perfect timing, suddenly a huge explosion rocks the entire floor. Debris flies, a lightning-fast shadow blurs right past the smoke. The shadow instantly wipes out every attacker. It is Seo Lang. She grins wide, wagging her golden tail as she locks onto Elaine's arms. Completely hyped, Seo Lang shouts that she has waited forever for him. Elaine is stunned. She drags him off while the crowd watches. She happily leads Elaine and Yuban straight into her guild base. The base is packed. Her loyal crew instantly cheers for their boss. They show her total respect. A fighter named Raoul steps up. He reports that the squad is running perfectly. He welcomes Elaine and Yuban as the VIP guests, Seo Lang already hyped. The boss jumps onto a table, telling her guests to sit. Elaine notices. She treats every single member like real family. He signals Yuban, time to pull out a massive pile of gifts. Yuban presents the legendary essence of the Golden Mane tribe to her. This gear is cracked, boosting critical hit rates by 20%. Elaine thinks about pride. It can make or break a warrior. He feels proud, like a dad watching his kids level up. Seo Lang insists that Elaine gets some sleep after his journey. She walks him to a private room, chatting about the harsh desert. They talk about the brutal environment and the raider ambush they faced. When Elaine mentions the Blood Sand crew, Seo Lang simply smirks. Turns out she had already wiped out the entire squad alone. She tracked down the last survivor, who bragged about his brother. Completely ignoring his threats of family protection, she ended him instantly. The next morning, she proudly brags about her nighttime slaughter. She tells Elaine all about it, basically begging for a head pat. Elaine is floored. She wiped out hundreds of elite fighters alone. He realizes her terrifying title of Baba Yaga is totally real. Meanwhile, inside a nearby arena, a brutal champion named K-Man dominates. He crushes everyone, ruling the colony with pure brute strength. Raoul arrives, hitting him with the news of the massacre. But K-Man does not care about his brother's death at all. The deceased brother was nothing more than a puppet to rule the streets. K-Man hands Raoul a powerful magic item from the father of all. This grants insane power, designed to throw the kingdom into chaos. 2 days later, Elaine heads toward the ancient city of Kahura. Accompanied by a guild escort, he steps into the ruins solo. Elaine steps into the crumbling shadows. A creepy voice whispers his name. A dark figure emerges, telling Elaine he barely meets the requirements. Supposedly, Elaine barely has the stats to even stand here. The entity explains that the system judges people based on rank. He warns that outside trouble is coming, and Elaine must handle it. Elaine just smiles. Finally, a powerful magic user has actually appeared. Real magic is nothing but a rule forced onto the universe by sheer willpower. Elaine suddenly realizes he has never once heard of the universe's natural system. The entity mocks the hero's confusion, barking at him to just follow the playbook. He announces that he will personally train Elaine on how to sling real magic. Left outside the cave, Selene grows increasingly worried about Elaine. Since he is taking too long, she suddenly sprints back to base. She arrives only to find Coleman brutally beating down her crew inside the house. Furious, the fox charges at him, screaming at his shameless, violent assault. But Coleman just laughs, completely brushing off her anger. He claims he is simply settling the score for his dead little brother. As the brute dashes to wipe out her crew, Sion blocks his path. Coleman easily dodges, smirking at her basic, desperate attempts to shield them. Just as her rage peaks, a cold dagger suddenly drives into her back. Whirling around in sheer disbelief, she stares at the face of her attacker. It is Ralgo, her trusted ally, laughing directly at his own betrayal. Seong cannot believe her own people would snake her after years of devotion. She had always dreamed of reclaiming the happiness a dragon stole from them. Ralgo cold-heartedly shrugs off their shared past as nothing but a lie. He barks at Coleman to finish her off quickly, utilizing dark abyss energy. Ralgo boosts his physical strength far beyond his normal limits with shadow power. A massive blast erupts as Seong's magic clashes with Coleman's heavy punch. She leaps back to dodge Ralgo's follow-up, frustrating him with her speed. Even with his boosted stats, Ralgo realizes he cannot match her level. Coleman spots Elaine walking up, instantly deciding to grab him as a hostage. Ralgo taunts Seong as the deadly venom from his blade begins spreading. He sneers that the guild only stayed loyal because of her luck. Seong desperately gasps that they were a family, but Ralgo just scoffs. He calls in the remaining turncoats to siphon her energy, but a sudden flash stops him. A sudden magic blast from Elaine completely shuts down his sinister plans. The heavy energy blows back both villains, deeply shocking Ralgo's senses. Elaine spots the black magic smoke, wondering why high-level abyss monsters are here. He quickly administers a premium potion to Seong to counter the paralyzing poison. The hero reassures her that most of her guild is still loyal. Farling charges forward to strike Ralgo while Elaine sets his defense. Activating his Ice Flake shield, he fuses his powers using ancient techniques. He reconstructs his magic logic, unleashing a truly devastating spell. The ancient shadow entity immediately recognizes the formation of an ice spear. He chuckles, amused that modern mages have forgotten its true designation. Correcting the casual term, he names the devastating spell Ice Crystal Spear. Elaine harnesses this lost ancient magic to actively rewrite the world's rules. The fabric of reality bends against his enemies, changing the entire battlefield. Midst the escalating chaos, Elaine drops his ultimate move without warning. A massive freezing blast shoots toward Ralgo with blinding and unavoidable speed. The ancient ice spear drills directly into Ralgo's chest, blasting him backward as if his very existence was suddenly erased. Right from the world, Seong and Yubin stood there, completely speechless. The entire battlefield was frozen solid, the ground, the air, and Ralga were locked in place. It was like pausing reality itself. An effortlessly easy win, or so it seemed. Then Ralga twitched his lips, bitterly muttering that it changed nothing. Not a single thing. Instinctively, Seong dropped her guard. Ralga instantly seized his chance, charging forward with a poisoned dagger. Drawn, he fueled his attack with the golden power siphoned from her. He was flying, he blurred across the battlefield, lightning fast. Seong's battered, exhausted body was simply too slow to dodge. At the absolute last second, Elaine moved on pure instinct. He yanked Seong backward, narrowly dodging the fatal strike just in time. But immediately after, dark blood spilled directly from his mouth. Seeing him hurt sent Seong over the edge, pure, unadulterated rage. She stomped her foot, crushing Ralga's head and deleting the traitor. Yubin screamed in absolute panic, but Elaine was actually perfectly fine. The poisoned blade only ripped his clothes, zero physical damage. He coughed blood simply because executing that massive ice spell had completely drained his magic reserves, causing some temporary internal damage. He was still standing. When the dust settled, Elaine realized why his spell was so strong. Ralga had absorbed dark power, technically reaching godlike status. But pushing tactical thoughts aside, Elaine noticed Seong looking quiet. She carried the heavy sadness of her family's betrayal. Before he could even check on her, she asked him a question. She wanted to know why he chose to save her instead of dodging. He smoothly lied, hiding the embarrassing truth of his fear. His legs had been too frozen to move, so he smoothly lied. He trusted her, adding that one never needs a reason to save family. Hearing this, Seong suddenly blushes super hard and gets way too close. She gets way too close, telling him she wants them to be family forever. Lane thinks he is finally getting some sweet stepfather appreciation. But then, plot twist, she aggressively asks him to marry her. Elaine is left completely frozen in shock. Soon, 5 days fly by. The whole town finds out the old arena boss was a complete coward. Seong scoops up the street respect, officially becoming the colony's new boss. In her free time, she aggressively clings to Elaine's arm. She begs him to tie the knot like an obsessed fan. Elaine sighs, realizing he cannot swipe left on this clingy behavior. She is asking for the 19th time, so he throws out a weak yes. He just wants her to shut up, praying she drops the marriage idea. Soon they pack the carriage. They leave Sing behind to rule. Inside the carriage, Yubin reports that the spy network cleared the traitors. There are 0 loose ends. Elaine praises his one-eyed bodyguard. He is a proud father who desperately needs a better security team. He still remembers. The shadow boss tells him to search the old fortress's eastern end to boost his power, where Alan easily decodes a dusty stone tablet containing ancient text. It speaks of honor, greed, and strange many-handed beasts, which Yusha quickly realizes are actually the outer gods, though she panics because the history is completely flipped backward before Yubai interrupts his research to deliver massive updates on his other chaotic siblings. First, Deus became a top sword master in 6 months. Ryan is now a ruthless politician, while Ronan became the supreme pirate king. Alan's jaw drops as he realizes his crew of troublemakers is slowly conquering the entire world. Meanwhile, far away, Yusha watches through her crystal ball as Xiaoring boasts about marrying their master, causing the white-haired girl to snap and fly into a violent, bloodthirsty rage. Right after dropping that massive marriage bombshell, Xiaoring goes totally wild and screams through the crystal that she is marrying her beloved master, aggressively hyping up their future as the realm's ultimate power couple. Meanwhile, Yusha watches from the other side, barely containing her absolute fury. The terrifying white-haired sister instantly crushes the fox girl's fantasy, coldly reminding Xiaoring that they are nothing but shadows, but Xiaoring refuses to accept defeat, snapping back that even shadows can win their master's heart. And a wedding ring. Yusha glares back through the orb with glowing red eyes, fiercely warning her that shadows belong in the dark, far from their lords. Side, Xiaoring flinches for a split second before shouting back that Alan's choice is the only thing that truly matters in this chaotic rivalry. Yusha flashes a cruel, mocking smile and asks if the hero would ever actually choose a stray dog like her. Desperate to win, Xiaoring plays a memory of asking Alan if he hated her when he nervously stuttered that he did not. Yusha and Deus are completely shocked by this sudden update, demanding to know what really happened with their beloved master. Xiaoring just smirks without any shame, acting like she has already won the entire war over that tiny moment. But out of nowhere, Deus completely ignores the romance to praise Alan's absolute powerhouse aura from their training duel 6 months ago, admitting he was too weak back then to even comprehend his master's true strength. Deus hypes himself up into a total frenzy, swearing to slay every abyssal monster alive just to become a weapon worthy of his lord. Xiaoring catches his fanatic energy and starts screaming that she feels the exact same way. After 2 full hours of relentless worship, Deus finally realizes he has been rambling like a maniac and tries to stop, but Yusha sharply cuts him off, screaming that the marriage is officially off, sparking a chaotic shouting match while the stubborn fox girl just keeps yelling yes. As the others argue, Ryan calmly takes down the official meeting minutes, noting they should never let Deus speak about their master again. She also jots down that Yusha throws a literal fit whenever another girl lays claim to their holy leader. Meanwhile, in a sketchy back alley of the capital, 2 corrupt old politicians plot a devastating political takedown as Marquis Boyd asks Duke Rimgrave if they can destroy them, the rising Kalpa gang that is completely ruining their cozy, corrupt little lives. The Duke smiles like an absolute snake, laying out a dark plan to ask the Holy Kingdom for a highly illegal, cross-border hit piece called the Letter of Reformation. He explains that if they can just bribe 2 greedy cardinals to stamp the paper, they can officially brand absolutely anyone as a completely doomed heretic. Phil Boyd is immediately down for the dirty work and asks how they secure the bag. The Duke casually replies that they just need to split a massive bribe. The 2 corrupt politicians happily clink their whiskey glasses, completely convinced their shady little scheme is going to be a guaranteed massive win. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to a glowing purple cathedral where a sketchy cardinal approaches his colleague to talk some seriously illegal business. Cardinal Sergius drops the fake holy act, instantly demanding to use his fellow cardinal's authority to completely frame Count Padio for heresy. Sergius smirks, promising that faking the criminal evidence will be an absolute walk in the park, since their target already looks guilty anyway. He confidently spins around to ask the other holy official for their final answer. he has no idea he is talking to the absolute. Worst person alive, Yui steps right out from the dark shadows in her gothic dress, her eyes glowing with pure, unhinged murder intent, the white-haired girl softly repeats his dirty little plan, asking if he seriously just tried to use her name to destroy her beloved Alan. Sergius completely misreads the room and tries to blackmail her, threatening to expose her for killing another cardinal unless she lets him keep all the bribe money he gets. Completely lost in his own greed, literally daydreaming about a massive harem of women while standing right in front of a literal demon, in a split second, Yui snaps, impaling the corrupt priest with massive, terrifying red magic spikes that rip right through his holy robes. She screams at the top of her lungs, utterly disgusted that this filthy mortal just asked her to assassinate her own personal god. Giant creepy tentacles and glowing red eyes flood the entire cathedral, as Sergius screams in absolute agony. The violent girl coldly tells him to scream as loud as he wants because nobody is coming to save his pathetic life. The greedy cardinal begs for a quick death, crying and coughing up blood while Yui endlessly electrocutes him with her dark red energy. He completely shatters under the torture, pleading for any kind of mercy, while the psycho girl just smiles down at his completely broken body. Yui steps right on him and whispers that she won't let him die because he still has a very special job to do for her. She commands him to suffer and understand his massive sins, making sure he completely regrets ever plotting against Alan. A whole month after their brutal desert trip, the scene transitions to a sunny daytime view of the massive Kalpa headquarters. Inside the fancy mansion, Alan holds a fresh document and mentally cries about how much he hates being a political boss. He aggressively complains about being way too lazy to deal with cosmic gods and messy turf wars when he just wants to sleep. Yebin completely calls him out for she had been carrying that same acceptance letter everywhere for 2 whole weeks. Elaine acts like a huge nerd, defending his weird obsession by admitting that the official leader certificate came with an absolutely massive, ungodly allowance of pure gold coins. He gets so hyped over his fat wallet that he starts aggressively posing with his new leader sash, suddenly preaching about power and responsibility. He walks out carrying giant shopping bags, totally willing to forgive the corrupt system since it just made him filthy rich overnight. He smiles like a total goofball, claiming that heavy retail therapy and cold hard cash are the absolute best cures for a wounded soul. Later that night, the scene switches to a super fancy reception hall packed with merchants, priests and rich snobs trying to network, when Elaine spots Kalia and Loria holding expensive drinks and mentally panics because he desperately wants to avoid these powerful, intimidating women. He plasters on a fake smile to greet them, silently begging the universe to let him escape this incredibly awkward social trap. While he awkwardly nibbles on a snack, Yubin slides up and whispers some juicy gossip about the royalist leader catching a nasty heresy charge. Elaine feels incredibly relieved, thinking he totally dodged a bullet by never messing with those particular political heavyweights. But get this, out of nowhere, Mari's Filboid bursts in looking completely beaten up, sweating buckets, and absolutely losing his mind. The old politician drops straight to his knees right in front of Elaine, loudly begging for his life while the entire fancy crowd gasps in pure shock. Elaine just stands there chewing his food with a completely blank face. Kalia and Loria are totally shocked, thinking Elaine is some massive mastermind who just completely crushed his rival. A sudden flashback reveals Philbide sweating bullets over a creepy coercion letter that popped up a few days ago. The letter came with a glowing orb showing Duke Rimrav getting absolutely cooked by a sacred moon illusion before shattering with a violent warning. The cursed orb told the old politician he was next on the chopping block, making him realize his entire career was completely finished. Back in the present, the old man promises to quit politics forever if Lane just calls off the hit, leaving our hero totally clueless about what is even happening. 3 days later, Elaine and his loyal knight hit the road to attend a massive wizard convention out east. Along the way, Yebin casually mentions Philboyd fled, asking if Elaine sent that scary letter, making our boy panic because he literally has zero idea how to do that. Yebin totally misunderstood Elaine's previous words about being lenient, assuming his boss was just acting humble while pulling off a mafia-style threat. Meanwhile, way over in the city of Labyrinths, some basic guild members are hyping up a sketchy raid on The 20th floor, the Iron Blood Guild leader takes a suspicious job just because the payout was too heavy to ignore, bragging about his high-level dungeon. Clears, the squad spots a tiny green dude on the supposedly safe floor and immediately starts roasting his goofy outfit, thinking it is just a basic goblin. They plan to easily clap the little guy for some quick gold. Completely unaware they just walked into a boss fight. Oh, they are so doomed. The green demon calls them noisy cockroaches and instantly wipes the floor with them. The entire crew unleashes massive magic wind blades. Meanwhile, Alan finally arrives at the magic tower, completely shocked that the central building is shaped exactly like the Eiffel Tower. Lennon rolls up looking stunning as always and offers him a private tour, while poor Euban gets dumped straight into the waiting room. Inside, they spot Pina screaming at some low-ranking green mages, flexing her high rank like an arrogant brat. The second she spots Alan, though, she completely short-circuits, bowing so fast her neck almost breaks just to say hello. The green mages are completely dumbfounded, rubbing their eyes because they think her sudden politeness is some kind of illusion spell. Balin awkwardly suggests that mages should try to get along instead of fighting in public. Hallways, Pina instantly spins around, loudly begs for friendship, and then activates a high-tier lightning step skill to sprint away from the sheer embarrassment. Lennon laughs at her sudden manners right before the watch closely. The elevator dings, and a creepy blonde guy named Baruch steps out. This purple-eyed Nepo baby immediately tries to hit on Lennon, who shuts him down. Instantly, cold shoulder. Lennon warns Alan that this guy is just a rank 4 fraud who steals other people's research just to look smart. Alan is secretly annoyed that this rich kid holds a high rank, while he's still grinding his own level. Our boy hits the 38th floor library, surrounded by floating books, ready to bypass the normal quest steps. He quickly hacks a giant clock by setting all the hands to 12, completely skipping the tedious time-gated quest. Easy. Then he just casually shoves his hand into a blank black book and pulls out a legendary Ring of Radiance like it is nothing. The next day at the duel grounds, Alan gets blindsided. A public challenge from Baruch instantly ruins his peaceful morning, right outside the arena. Lennon apologizes to Alan, admitting that Baruch keeps hitting on her and begging for marriage. The blonde rich kid struts up, completely full of himself, smirking as he asks the legendary God Slayer for some pointers. Baruch secretly thinks Alan is just a weak rank 3 fraud, planning to use him as a stepping stone to boost his own reputation. He calls it a friendly duel and mocks the hero, asking if he has cold feet. Alan just glares at this walking joke, remembering the golden rule to always give haters a reason to cry, and instantly accepts the challenge, stepping into the massive battle ring. The referee bans lethal magic before calling for them to begin. Baruch immediately flexes his glowing purple magic staff, desperately wanting to end the fight before everyone realizes his skills are complete trash. But before he can even swing, his feet get completely frozen to the floor by thick, solid ice. Alan casually snaps his fingers, dropping a massive blizzard spell called Glory of the Snowy Mountain straight onto his head. Just minutes before this absolute beatdown, a group of mages were totally doubting Alan, judging his low mana capacity while gossiping about Pina's apology. Back in the present, those same haters watch in horror as Alan casually summons a rank 5 triple magic circle. His combined spell, Crystal Rotation, whips up a violent ice tornado. The blizzard swallows Barrow, making the crowd scream that Alan just dropped in illegal killing curse straight from the Violet Tower. The blonde fraud gets totally packed up and deep frozen, leaving the announcer no choice but to declare our boy the undisputed winner. The second it ends, a swarm of starstruck mages surround Alan, begging to know how he pulled off those ancient hand signs. Our hero realizes he went way too hard on a rank 3 scrub, so he makes an excuse and slides right away from his new fan club, finding a quiet hallway. Alan admires his spiky black ring, geeking out over how it let him bypass the game's strict daily magic limits. He realizes that stringing ancient spell words together is basically like typing cheat codes directly into the universe, which gets him incredibly hyped for his midnight heist. Later that night, the scene shifts to the spooky 38th floor library, where floating books spin around in the dark. A creepy voice echoes out, praising Alan for showing up on time and surviving the first puzzle without completely losing his sanity. But he just plays it cool, telling the hidden boss that He came upstairs to solve the rest of her little games, the mysterious voice. Chuckles at his raw confidence, clearly amused that a simple player isn't. Crying from pure terror yet, a system prompt reveals this boss is Archmage. Henkel, the terrifying cup of the primordial, and the first human to hit. Lon starts sweating bullets because seasoned players know this. Tiny blue-haired girl is actually the infamous retry witch who literally won. Taps players for just breathing wrong. She floats down, looking absolutely tiny in. Alon stares at his brutal dialogue options, knowing that if he accidentally calls her a messy milk drinker, his entire run is completely cooked. Feeling her crushing, god-level pressure, Alon secretly charges up some dark magic behind his back just in case things get ugly. He tries to sound cool, asking for the next riddle, but Henkel suddenly spots his dark energy and completely loses her mind. Honestly, the supposedly terrifying boss squeaks in sheer panic, crying like a baby as she physically chucks a glowing treasure chest right at his face. She turns into a cloud of smoke and vanishes from the library entirely, leaving our boy confused. Soon after that weird encounter, Alon chills at the magic conference, hitting up as many nerd tables as he can to steal free knowledge. He sits next to Lion, who is basically a walking cheat code for mana control. She leans in close, asking for the 15th time if he is really just a basic rank 3 scrub. Alon sighs, tired of the constant questions, and starts thinking he needs to step up his game to rank 4. Suddenly, massive news drops that a wild outer god just spawned in the Labyrinth City, so Alon immediately orders Yeben to pack their bags double time. Right as our boy is about to leave, Pedia runs up to his carriage looking absolutely thrilled instead of sad. The blue-haired princess stutters out a quick goodbye, yelling that she totally knew he was just a rank. Alon stares at her like she has 0 brain cells, completely mystified as to why she looks so happy to see him go. Fast forward a few days and the crew rolls up to Lanya, a massive labyrinth city built on pure capitalism. Alan looks up at the massive gates, realizing that in this town, cold hard cash is the absolute only superpower that matters. He walks right up to the reception desk, but the guard completely loses his temper, screaming that he is sick of fake VIPs. The annoying jerk demands an insane 3,000 gold coin entry fee, basically telling Alan he is just way too broke to enter. When our guy asks for the next free slot, the gatekeeper smirks, telling him to wait 10 whole months before Alan can even process that wild disrespect. An incredibly fat and arrogant rich brat named Labard waddles up with his goons. This ugly city lord's son points a finger at Alan, calling him a dirty beggar and demanding he move his broke self out of the way. Right when things are about to get violent, Renee steps right into view looking like a complete boss, telling the fat kid to get lost. Instantly, her personal muscle throws a heavy punch straight at Labard, striking his mouth and sending a huge splash of blood flying everywhere. Renee totally ignores the crying brat, instead bowing low and respectfully calling Alan her patron. Right in front of the stunned crowd, Labard screams that he is actual royalty, threatening to ruin her life with his massive high-level political connections. But Renee literally does not care at all, completely ignoring his pathetic tantrum as she happily guides her favorite guy right through those massive front doors. Lounging on the fancy couches inside, Alan asks why she calls him patron instead of the usual godfather title the other kids prefer. Renee smoothly replies that it fits his vibe perfectly, leaving our boy feeling super proud of his brilliant green-haired moneymaker. He gets straight to business, asking his rich sugar daughter to use her massive influence to slide him into the outer god strike force. Renee admits things are pretty messy right now, but promises she can pull the right strings, telling him to get some rest first. After a long nap, Alan wakes up hungry and meets with Renee at the dining table, ready to hear about the big meeting. She casually serves breakfast and drops an absolute mind-blowing bomb, telling Alan she completely murdered Labard without leaving a single trace. Our boy instantly chokes on his food, sweating as he realizes she literally assassinated the city lord's son. Like it was nothing, Renee shows a brutal flashback of her goons choking the fat guy out, explaining he was a complete cancer who secretly ran dirty biological experiments. Alan looks pretty visibly stressed here, thinking he's completely crazy adopted daughter is going way too far just to keep his hands clean. Renee looks slightly hurt by his worried face, so Alan quickly lies and says he just does not want her getting put in danger. Moving past the casual murder, Renette takes Alan into a secret vault to show off her massive, glowing tracker eye. Artifact, Alan recognizes the tool, realizing this incredibly smart girl has been using it to scoop up all the hidden high-tier loot in town, her massive stash. Explains exactly why she is stupidly rich and throwing around so much massive weight. In the local underground, finally getting down to real business, Renee walks him straight into the elite meeting room to face the top 5 guild leaders. But the second he steps in, a spicy cat girl named Mimon points a finger right at his chest, calling him a total fraud, which forces Alan to crack his knuckles and prepare to humble these scrubs. The other squads just brush him off like some useless rat. Fed up with the disrespect, Alan decides to show them his true strength. Alan instantly drops the cold glory of his snowy magic, freezing the entire meeting room just to flex on the top 5 guild leaders. He needs these heavy-hitting mercenaries to carry him through an outer god raid, but his icy stunt totally backfires. The guild bosses instantly draw their swords, looking ready to chop Alan into absolute pieces for the massive disrespect. Alan is sweating inside, realizing he probably just triggered a massive boss fight by acting way too cocky, still playing it cool like a total sociopath. Alan kicks back in his icy chair and smoothly asks if they can finally talk business. He remembers a specific quest line from his gaming days. Knows exactly how to game the system without throwing hands. Argonia, the demon-horned boss of the top guild, stares at him before suddenly telling her entire squad to stand down. She agrees to meet up tomorrow, completely stunning Ryan, the blonde mercenary who desperately wanted to catch a free body. The second the doors close, Alan clutches his chest, practically having heart attack. Talk about a close call. He prays he never has to do that again. Meanwhile, the angry Ryan demands to know why Argonia let this pretentious snob walk away without a scratch. Argonia brutally humbles him, explaining that Alan's icy flex would have literally flatlined them on the spot if he actually let it rip. The demon boss flashes back to her childhood, remembering a terrifying warning about a massive black eye in the sky. Her dragon mother warned her to never look straight at a being with god-level caliber, and she just felt that exact same terrifying aura from Alan. The very next day, the tense strategy meeting goes smoother than butter, as all the guild leaders totally submit to Alan's master plan. Alan is actually shocked that even the spicy catgirl Maigon is sitting quietly while he drops fake ancient text lore from his gamer memory. With the squad locked in, the massive army of mercenaries finally kicks down the doors and starts their brutal descent into the labyrinth. They immediately start carving through the dungeon, violently turning a giant purple bird monster into fresh exotic poultry, walking through the dark halls. Maigon sidles up next to Alan and straight up asks if he wants to sleep with her. Talk about direct. She really wants to get her paws on his heavy magic, offering to quietly take out Ryan so they can have some private time. Alan hits her with an instant rejection, realizing this unhinged beast folk tribe literally just gets turned on by raw violent power. By day 2, the raid party is completely exhausted, dragging themselves through the endless dungeon floors just to find the damn stairs. Alan complains that in the game this was a quick loading screen, but in reality, he has to actually walk like a total peasant. They finally hit the 5th floor, a lush green safe zone, where the tired mercenaries immediately drop their gear to touch some grass. Argonia notes they still have plenty of time, since the outer god is supposed to be chilling way down on the 12th floor. Out of absolutely nowhere, a massive wind blade rips through the peaceful safe zone, turning a bunch of random mercenaries into instant red mist. The surviving fighters panic, screaming about a wild goblin attack, but the dust clears to reveal a floating green demon. Looking down on them, the monster arrogantly demands to know who gave these pathetic roaches the right to look him straight in the eyes. Suddenly, Elaine unleashes a freezing shock wave of raw power, ripping through the grass. This frozen blast makes the front line shake in their boots. Elaine glares up at the arrogant beast and calls him out by his true name, Kairos. The massive demon king freezes in pure shock. Privately, Elaine is screaming, because this godlike boss was supposed to be 3 entire days away from this floor. Kairos laughs at the handsome human who knows his lore and offers to spare their lives if they tuck tail and run like good little dogs. Refusing to back down, Elaine orders the squad to lock into formation, forcing Kairos to unleash a devastating green tornado straight at their faces. Kairos hurls a massive wind blast with total ease, The mercenary squad tries to block the strike with their weapons, but Kairos just laughs, calling their gear cute little toys. Elaine realizes his anti-magic trick actually worked because this green beast is not fully loaded into this floor yet. Knowing there is no time to waste, Elaine spams his heavy ice spells, forming a massive frozen star, right on cue. Ryan opens her glowing grimoire and starts chanting with absolute focus. Massive chains erupt from the heavens to trap the demon, setting up their next move. Elaine summons a giant ice crystal halberd, hoping this massive frozen weapon will terrify the boss. Suddenly, a colossal spear of ice flies straight at Kairos for a guaranteed one-shot kill, but the arrogant demon merely smirks, raising a single green finger. Kairos casually shatters the massive ice weapon with a tap, leaving Elaine completely stunned. The green beast calls him a mere insect who missed his shot. Kairos admits his avatar is bugged out, but he still decides to play with his food. He claps his hands, triggering a massive quake spell that literally flips the ground upside down. The mercenary crew goes flying like fragile ragdolls while the demon laughs at their pathetic struggle. Not done flexing, Kairos unleashes a giant green laser beam right onto the squad. They barely dodge the devastating blast, but the green monster instantly teleports right above them with a cruel smirk. He dives down for a brutal slam, but the swift catgirl Mion suddenly leaps in to protect her allies. Kairos looks highly amused, asking what other cute tricks they have to keep him entertained. He is completely styling on them like they are day one noobs. Elaine starts to panic, realizing this green freak is actually casting high-level spells. The raw power gap is far too massive, and this entire raid is turning into a total failure. Desperate to survive, Elaine chugs 5 whole mana potions back-to-back like his life depends on it. He rapidly conjures a massive spinning ice shield to block the relentless strikes. Sweating and breathing heavily, his body starts rejecting the overload, suffering severe mana poisoning as he desperately tries to hold the line. Barely standing, Elaine yells for Ryan to unleash her ultimate magic. Ryan instantly summons heavy chains to bind the demon once again. Elaine forces his broken body to cast a massive blizzard spell, digging deep into his mind for any trick to survive. He clutches his head in agony, remembering secret rules of magic and raw essence play out, flashing like a glowing red eye. A vision flashes. He realizes the trick is just a simple hand sign. Lon conjures a glowing ice spear, but Kas gets completely annoyed by the flashy show. The green boss surges past the chains, trying to wipe Ryan off the map. But Ellen dives in. He takes the brutal hit straight to his shoulder to save her. As his blood splatters, Alon firmly locks his fingers into the sign. He forms the secret hand sign, turning his spear into a massive, glowing key. He twists the frozen lock, dropping his ultimate ice crystal halberd. The strike instantly freezes the entire battlefield into an endless glacier. Pure Ross magic usually operates on strict rules, but Alon just hacked the entire system. His massive spell freezes absolutely everything in its icy path. It is an insane show of pure power, and then the giant spikes explode. Spikes shatter. Alon coughs up dark blood from the extreme backlash. Wiping his mouth, he knows this heavy magic is still way above his level. The job is done. Kas floats quietly above the shattered battlefield. The boss admits his physical body is just too weak to endure that strike. The green demon smirks, telling Alon that excuses do not change reality. Instead, he compliments Alon, calling his ice trick an excellent answer. With that, Kas takes his defeat and completely shatters into dust. He turns into glowing blue particles, fading out of this massive maze forever. The moment the boss vanishes, all energy leaves Alon's body and his eyes roll back. He faceplants straight into the dirt, completely knocked out cold. Talk about a rough victory. The battlefield finally goes quiet, and much later, Alon slowly opens his eyes. A brutal, splitting headache pounds his skull as he realizes where he is. He is lying in a messy camp bed, completely unable to feel his own legs. Potions cause deadly poisoning. He is lucky his heart did not completely stop. Ryan sits quietly by his bedside to report that the catgirl is healing fast. However, the demon boss, Argonia, is still barely hanging on to life. Looking down, Ryan suddenly asks why he risked his own neck to save her. She felt totally useless in the fight, which actually triggers Alon quite a bit. This triggers him. Why do his adopted kids think they are just cheap tools? After a violent cough, he looks at the green-haired girl and sets things straight. They are his family. Every single one of them is real family. Saving her was only natural since she saved him first, so there are no debts. He tells her to just wish him a happy birthday instead, making Ryan emotional. She finally understands. Her boss genuinely cares about her safety and her life. 5 days later, Alon finally steps outside into the endless daylight to check things. He visits the injured catgirl before the crew starts packing up for the trip. Stepping outside, Yuban instantly screams at Alon for looking like a total mummy. He defends his choice. Yuban would have ruined his sneaky plans. With the carriages loaded, Ryan curiously asks when his actual birthday is. Alon casually mentions that it already passed back on September 20th. Ryan immediately locks that date into her brain, determined to prove her worth. To her, he is the only man who treats her right, prompting an unhinged smirk. She decides that gifting him an entire, giant castle would make a pretty cute starter. A gift for her favorite dad, winter finally hits the massive Palladio estate. Bringing heavy snow and some much-needed downtime, Alon kicks back on his sofa, waiting for his magic sickness to pass while staring at a mountain of boring paperwork. Suddenly, Ibn walks in holding a glowing crystal ball from the Alisa family, placing it right on the desk. Luya's face suddenly pops up inside, offering a polite bow while congratulating our guy for officially taking over the underworld. Hearing this, Alon completely freezes in sheer panic, realizing this wealthy girl actually took his random, joking comments completely seriously. Deloria giggles like a total menace, explaining that since he already bullied the top politicians, taking over the criminal turf was incredibly simple. She casually asks if they should assassinate the king next, forcing Alon to frantically yell at her to just keep the peace. The connection cuts off, leaving him crying over becoming an underworld kingpin without lifting a single finger. To make matters worse, he spots a fancy red letter demanding his presence at a massive royal banquet. Later, he chills by a fire roasting sweet potatoes, desperately trying to recall those strange ancient words he uttered during his recent boss fight. Meanwhile, on the labyrinth's 5th floor, mysterious figure in a dark cloak drifts over the shattered debris. He senses the leftover energy and mutters that he had no idea Alon possessed this much power. The shadowy man looks straight up at a glowing crest on the ground. Deeply impressed by the frozen destruction left behind, he wears a devious smirk, already plotting how much fun it will be to test the Lord's abilities the next time their paths happen to cross. Meanwhile, back at the state, Alon stares at the Queen's red invitation, and yeah, he is sweating bullets. Over the upcoming royal audience, he checks his status screen, remembering that Cyan Cretinia, the 8th monarch, possesses a completely broken skill called the Eye of History. Essentially, this cheat lets her access all the ancestral memories directly, granting her an absurd amount of historical knowledge. He recalls that she was an absolute beast in the game, briefly joining the party and utterly decimating the enemies. However, our main character also knows she is an absolute slacker who never actually leaves her bed, earning her the title of the sleeping dragon. He thinks if he stays entirely passive and lets her flaunt her royal authority, he can easily avoid any political drama. After conquering the underworld, deep within a dark forest, a shady assassin realizes his partner is already dead with a broken neck. He starts screaming into his magic communicator, throwing an absolute fit because his lazy agency failed their job and ruined his flawless streak. Honestly, this killer is incredibly furious that Count Palladio is suddenly causing his team's perfect success rate to drop, so the bald hitman decides to hunt down the one person who knows the Lord best, arriving outside a quiet church in Caliburn where Deus stands guard, completely hiding his presence. Yet the bald killer spots him, instantly using his creepy, glowing eyes. Seeker demands to know everything about Count Alon, threatening to slice Deus in half if he does not start talking immediately. But before he can strike, thick sticky webs wrap around them, and Deus drops. He drops from the ceiling like an unhinged spider, wrapping his target in razor-sharp threads. The assassin Seeker instantly panics, realizing he just walked directly into a trap. Deus stares down coldly. The struggling bald man has nowhere to run. He prepares to shred him to pieces for questioning his beloved master. Meanwhile, back at the secret meeting, Xiao Lang screams directly into the crystal ball. She declares she wants to marry Alon, driving Yudia absolutely insane with jealousy. Ryan pulls rank, reminding the foxy girl that Yudia has served their moon way longer. Ryan calmly tries to start the meeting. Order must be kept among them. When she asks to report on the tracker eye, Yudia shuts her down out of pure spite. Duras finally cuts through the chaotic waifu war, casually dropping a massive bomb. He located a massive assassin agency and already deleted 3 of their guys. Sang immediately loses her mind, asking if she should decapitate them or tear them apart. Radon suggests they gather actual intel first, a smart play. This logical suggestion immediately backfires as the crazy girls accuse him of being a traitor. Radon facepalms in pure frustration. He is sick of his bloodthirsty squad. Instant murder, that is how they want to solve literally every single problem. He sighs, realizing his own loyalty to Elan is healthy, but the others are different. They are straight up treating the man like a holy cult leader. Finally, the big day arrives. Elan steps out of his carriage looking incredibly sharp. Yubin watches proudly as the crowd parts for his boss. Ignore him, the rich snobs walk right past without a single glance. Elan completely freezes in place, feeling totally lost in the crowd. But get this, the nobles are actually forming an honor guard for him. Inside, the royalist factions whisper among themselves, plotting their dirty little schemes. They hope the queen is about to verbally destroy this new underworld boss on the spot. But Elan takes a deep breath and marches down the massive red carpet. Eat absolute dirt, he prepares to swallow his pride and play the victim. He drops to one knee in front of the gorgeous, blonde Queen Sheen. He introduces himself while she lounges like a true ruler, making the haters sneer. They are convinced that his faction, Kalpa, is about to get completely crushed. Queen Sheen lounges majestically on her throne, looking like an absolute goddess. Then she drops the craziest plot twist, promoting Elan right on the spot. She raises him from a basic count all the way to a marquis. Total short circuit, our boy turns blue and sweats under her gaze. This massive jump in rank makes zero logical sense, but she just smirks. She claims it is his reward for cleaning up the dark underbelly. She never cared about crime before, making Elan fall into a massive panic. Pure power flex, he realizes this crazy woman is just showing off. He bows lower, knowing she could easily wipe out his entire faction. Suddenly, she leans down from her high throne, catching him completely off guard. She gently brushes his chin with her finger, telling him to stop looking miserable. She whispers that a smile suits him much better, leaving him completely stunned. Freshman blush, he turns bright red and completely loses his composure. With that final flirt, she casually ends the meeting and struts out, leaving the entire court completely stunned. The second the doors close, the royalists explode. A bunch of snobs immediately swarm Alan, sucking up to the new noble. Like eager groupies, even Kalia looks totally impressed, whispering to Loria that their guy just pulled off the ultimate political heist. Meanwhile, an older noble glares at him with pure hatred, completely furious that this upstart just stole the entire royal spotlight. Next, in a dark, gross alleyway. In Ashtun, we find Duke Rimgrave literally crawling on the floor. Absolutely broke and ruined, he screams into the night, furious that he spent a whole month getting tortured in a holy prison, while Elan got a royal promotion. Desperate for quick revenge, the ruined politician knocks on a sketchy door, demanding to speak to the local mafia boss. The door violently swings open, revealing a terrifying beast girl standing right over a massive pile of fresh, bloody corpses. She smiles like a total psycho while Rimgrave violently shakes, completely disgusted by the raw and brutal slaughter. He quickly tries to hire her to assassinate Elan, but she just laughs right in his face, kicking a bloody severed head and telling him he is way too late. She casually reveals that this messy pile of meat was actually the entire underworld agency he wanted to hire. Rimgrave completely loses his mind, crying and screaming that he is a royal marquis. As she slowly steps closer, she mocks his pathetic begging, flashing a terrifying grin, promising to reunite him with his dead little agency. A massive golden lightning claw completely shreds the old man, ending his sad, ruined life. In one brutal strike, the scene shifts back to Elan and Yubin standing outside. A destroyed mansion hidden deep inside a massive cave. A week later, Elan finally escapes the exhausting royal party, stuffing his face with cake just to survive the stress. He hops in his carriage with Yubin, heading toward a creepy forest right on the edge of the desert. He mentions they need to hit up the Kahala ruins next to activate that crazy item Henkel gave him. Yubin spots a massive cave mansion and Elan smirks, realizing they just found a free gold mine waiting to be looted. But a few hours earlier, a cocky dude named Lame was talking massive trash to a creepy goth girl holding a glowing staff claiming to be a legendary killer from 300 years ago, but suddenly Yudi absolutely deletes him with a single violent strike, leaving the boss dead and the mansion completely empty, back in the present. Yubin asks if this trash base is really the secret gold mine Alon was looking for. Alon smirks like an absolute menace, explaining that since the original mafia boss got deleted, all this shiny loot is totally free. The two guys quickly bag up the heavy gold coins, completely shocked that life just handed them an easy payday. After securing the massive bag, they jump back into the carriage and head out toward their next major destination. Arriving at the Golden Desert, Sang instantly jumps onto Alon like a thirsty golden retriever screaming for her benefactor. They ride together in the carriage, but Alon notices the foxy girl is acting weirdly distant from her own squad. He remembers the brutal betrayal she suffered from Ra, feeling bad for the heavy trauma still weighing her down. Deciding to be a good dad, he promises to grant her a quick favor just to cheer up his favorite clingy fox. Sang gets super hyped and instantly slams a piece of paper onto his lap, begging him to sign it right there. Alon reads the document and completely freezes in pure shock. He realizes this wild girl just handed him a legal marriage certificate. She smiles, blushing red with her lipstick ready to go. She demands he officially make her his wife right here in the carriage. Meanwhile, in the dark Ashelan kingdom, a wavy-haired boss is complaining. His entire agency just vanished into thin air without a trace. He asks about Asteria and learns all their top recruits are gone too. A pink-haired grunt kneels on the floor, desperately begging for mercy. Kalpa snatched up all the power before they could even blink. The boss smiles gently, telling him there is no need to apologize. Then he instantly blasts the guy with a deadly dark magic execution. The grunt screams as his body cracks open, dragged straight to the abyss. That is the price of failure, he tells his maid to clean up. Next, he takes a walk down to his creepy basement to check on Lord Carmen. The broken man is trapped inside a glowing green tube, looking completely useless. The boss mocks him, saying his weak body could not handle the abyss power. He sighs over losing what should have been his perfect test subject. Though his older experiment, Common, was actually a massive success story. A quick flashback shows Common receiving an insane surge of purple power, while two guys brag about taking over the underworld very soon. Back then, Common asked who was bothering his master and saw Alon's face. Now back in the present, the boss admits he totally underestimated the count. He orders a shadowy hitman to watch the colony closely. He wants some nasty rumors spread around to completely ruin Alon's reputation. The villain smiles like an absolute menace, plotting his next move. He wants to use the desperate nobles to expand his dark influence. He claims this dirty scheme is for the greater good. What a manipulator. Back in the carriage, Selling is panting and looking completely feral. She is desperately begging Alon to start a family with her right now. Our hero sweats bullets. Can you blame him? She's trying to trap him. He knows he cannot just reject her flat out and break her heart. So he gently pats her head, telling her she needs to wait until she is older. When Selling asks how long, Alon pulls a random number out of his hat. He tells her to come back in 2 years. She actually smiles and agrees. Now Alon is just praying she forgets about her intense issues by then. They finally pull up to the forgotten ruins. Alon asks her to wait. Selling happily agrees to watch his back, letting him go ahead. He walks alone into the massive central tower to meet a complete stranger. Inside the dark room, a glowing circle lights up as a shadow dragon woman appears. Armed with black horns, she drops down, shocked a human can even see her. She realizes that beating an outer god actually boosted his raw aura. She admits she fully expected him to die. Alon casually agrees with her. He admits he almost got completely folded back there, but his mana is empty. He locks in anyway, starting to chant a powerful heavy snow mountain spell. A massive ice halberd shoots up and explodes with a giant flash. The crash leaves the cocky dragon girl completely speechless and staring. Alan calls her out for faking her ignorance about spirit projection. She crosses her arms and pouts, demanding to know how he actually cast the spell without the right mental foundation. Alan explains he just memorized the basic rules and twisted the fancy words around to make the magic work his own way. The dragon girl explains that real magic sentences need a spirit projection to engrave the laws into a person's actual memory. our boy realizes his brain works completely backward from normal mages, forcing him to learn everything the hard way instead of following instructions. Right in the middle of their deep nerd talk, the dragon woman starts glitching out as her rental time completely expires. Before vanishing, she tells Alan to hunt down Sparrow's staff if he wants to properly record those spicy magic words. She warns him the staff belongs to a total lunatic who shoved his own personality into the weapon, making it super stubborn. She fades away completely, promising that if he secures the staff, he will finally have enough power to push the dark forces back. Alan stands alone and realizes the staff is locked tight inside the royal treasury, meaning he has to go win a massive fighting tournament. Meanwhile, we are back on the bright, sunny streets where Alan and Sealing are stuck in massive, annoying traffic. Alan decides to stretch his legs, stepping out into a giant crowd filled with heavily armored paladins walking around. Suddenly, a soft voice calls out to him, and he turns around to see a gorgeous girl in a black dress staring at him. He recognizes those intense red eyes instantly and realizes it is Yui, looking like an absolute total stunner. She grabs his hands warmly. Our boy Alan stares at a crowd going absolutely feral over Yui. Random kid hypes up the pretty saintess, but Yui corrects him with a sweet smile, demanding to be called Your Eminence. Alan slides up to his crazy adopted kid, and they decide to take the chat somewhere private. Settle violently nods her head, basically barking like a loyal dog to lead them straight to the guild headquarters. The scene shifts to a bumpy carriage ride where Yuban drops massive lore about Yui's crazy new job. He explains a cardinal from Rosario is basically the top boss right under the Pope and can literally start holy wars. Alan is completely shook, realizing his little shadow monster just finessed her way into massive holy authority. He secretly celebrates having a rich sugar daughter backing his plays before they finally step into the fancy guild base. Yui sits inside the shiny room. Sealing tells everyone to chill, and she instantly jumps onto the sofa right next to Alan. Yui glares at the fox like jealous ex-girlfriend until Alan asks if she has business in the colony. Yui flips a switch, acting totally innocent, and blushes while announcing her massive holy promotion in person. Alan thinks her angelic smile makes her look like a pure saint, completely forgetting she is a literal walking disaster. Our hero remembers her absolutely terrifying monster face, realizing her innocent act is a massive trap. Sealing ruins the peace by whispering that Yui only came here because she is totally thirsty for their godfather. Yui drops the holy act, threatening the foxy girl with secret directives until Sealing forces a fake sweaty bestie hug. Right on cue, Xiang shamelessly brings up Alan, promising to marry her in exactly 2 years. Yusha completely loses her mind, trying to gaslight Alan into saying he only promised that marriage under extreme duress. She tells the fox she is way too young for a ring, but Xiaoring claps back, calling Yusha a dusty old hag. Yusha claims she is only 2 years older, causing Xiaoring to scream that Ren exposed her for being 1,000 years old. The floor literally explodes, sending the loudmouthed fox crashing straight into the basement while Yusha calmly blames bad construction. The scene cuts outside to the carriage where Yusha acts perfectly normal and says a polite goodbye. Alan mentions that he needs to hit the arena to grab the legendary Sparrow's staff. Yusha offers to pull some royal strings. Our boy declines, and the very next day Xiaorong flexes her VIP street cred to instantly skip the massive gladiator line. Alan grabs his new F-rank tag, thanking the universe he brought his clingy fox along to handle the annoying paperwork. 2 days later, the arena announcer hypes up a massive, bloody free-for-all death match with a giant crowd. All the F-rank scrubs gang up on Alan, thinking he is an easy target with a massive bounty on his back. Our hero decides he does not have time for this circus, swapping his single target style for a giant area nuke. He drops a freezing crystal bomb, completely wiping out every single gladiator in the ring with one ridiculous hit. The announcer screams his name as Alan gets an instant promotion to D rank, while the crowd goes absolutely crazy. After the fight in a hallway, Alan drops to his knees, clutching his chest, sweating bullets because that giant blast completely emptied his mana tank. Urban walks up praising his boss and hands over a shiny purple box that Yusha secretly mailed over. Alan opens it to find the exact skeletal staff he wanted, touched that his oldest daughter just hooked him up. The next day, Alan chills in his room and pumps his dark mana straight into the staff to wake it up. the skull's mouth flashes red and it instantly starts talking, calling the ancient magic rules a total joke. The staff refuses to teach him any spells and tells our boy to leave him alone. Xiaorang bursts into the room, announcing that an arrogant rank gladiator just challenged Alan to a random duel. Alan is totally confused why a high-tier fighter wants beef with a D-rank nobody, calling the guy completely shameless. He quickly realizes this is a free ticket to skip the ranks, grinning at the chance to embarrass a top dog. Turning back to the stubborn staff, Alan offers to make a spicy bet if the skull does not believe his skills. The skeletal staff laughs, totally down for the entertainment, setting up a brutal showdown for the arena. The very next day, our boy Alan struts into the dusty arena to settle a spicy little bet. He steps up as a basic D-rank rookie, ready to clap a loudmouth A-rank gladiator named Pearson. This rowdy meathead screams at the crowd, desperate to beat our hero and skyrocket his own clout. Pearson totally thinks Alan is just a basic ice user and instantly blasts him with some heavy fire magic. Our protagonist just smirks, dodging the sweaty flames with blinding speed by switching his whole vibe to pure lightning. Pearson totally panics, realizing his easy win has just turned into a nightmare. Alan decides to stop playing with his food and drops a crazy. He unleashes a spell to literally fuse his body with raw lightning, turning into a glowing god of thunder, completely styling on this loudmouth scrub. With one massive flashy strike, Aslan electrocutes Persian into absolute crispy chicken wings, snatching an easy victory. The crowd goes completely feral while Aslan stands there looking like a premium snack, even with a bloody nose. Walking out of the ring, Aslan mentally freaks out because that crazy spell almost deleted his entire existence. He realizes that turning his physical body into pure magic is basically playing Russian roulette with his life. The slightest mistake would have scattered his ashes like cheap party fireworks all over the arena. Back in his room, Sing hovers over him, super worried and begging to pump him full of sticky recovery potions. Aslan gently pats the foxy girl to calm her down, realizing he actually won his ridiculous bet against a magic skull. They soon hop into a carriage as Aslan and Sing head straight for the royal castle. Aslan secretly thanks her, knowing her heavy street cred got him instant VIP access to the king's shiny vault. Aslan pulls out a creepy skull staff and uses his mind powers to casually bully the ghost trapped inside, but the staff begs Aslan to sign a dirty little contract. Aslan violently rejects the trap, telling the dusty boomer he needs to chat with the dragon lady first. As they roll up to the fancy palace, and Aslan casually drops to one knee to greet the king of the colony. King Carmax praises his easy arena win and finally grants him full access to the shiny royal treasury. Out of nowhere, the king tries to push his own daughter onto Aslan, offering her up like a free side dish. Aslan just politely dips out, following a guard down to the massive treasure room to pick his one free prize. After digging around, he snatches up a dusty old sword called the Oath of the Blindfolded One and heads back upstairs. Aslan walks back in to show off his new toy, but the king and Sing are both acting super sketchy. The sweaty monarch suddenly takes his daughter off her back, walking out. Aslan asks his foxy girl what really went down, but she just flashes an innocent, totally fake smile. A quick flashback reveals the dark truth. Sing had actually threatened the king with massive, unhinged murder intent to protect her man. The scene jumps to the palace throne room where Yudi steps inside, wearing her spicy new cardinal outfit, looking ready to cause problems. She drops the sweet saint act entirely, her face turning ice cold as she stares down the sweaty monarch. The king instantly starts shaking, realizing this crazy white-haired psycho is not here for a friendly chat. Yudi demands answers about some little secrets, her red eyes glowing with pure toxic energy.